Chapter 1129. This secret weapon was left behind by Alliance Master Zhang, and now it's being used by you. What kind of good news is that? The green-robed man said disdainfully. I want to control these 5,000 men and turn the Misty School into a puddle of chaotic water. Only then can I take advantage of the chaos and obtain the position of gang leader of the Misty School. Fine, fine. If you do this, when will you be able to get the Misty School into the pockets of the Righteous Alliance? I'm afraid that Abbess Jing, you would have noticed it long ago. Don't forget, Misty Sect still has thousands of disciples from Incense Cult. I hope Commander Jiang can tell Vice Alliance Master Yu that this is the only path I can take. Shui Yuping said with a bit of shame. No need. When I received the news that the Misty School had returned to the Misty Mountain Villa, I sent the news back to the Righteous Alliance and also reported the situation you might encounter to Alliance Master Zhang. Alliance Master Zhang has already passed down the order through Vice Alliance Master Yu. Otherwise, why would I ask you to come out? Yes, I'm stupid. When I met Commander Jiang that day, I didn't expect that the Misty School disciples could return to the Misty Mountain Villa. Although the orders I received later gradually changed, I couldn't keep up with the changes, so I'm a bit stretched. I just don't know. What is Alliance Master Zhang's plan this time? What else can it be? The green-robed man took out something and threw it to Shui Yuping. Shui Yuping caught it. It was a jade bottle. She couldn't help but ask curiously, but then her face changed and she said anxiously, could it be? Yes, gang leader Shui. This is the poison. The green-robed man said with a smile. However, it's different from the slow-acting poison I gave you to Huyuni last time. This time, it's highly toxic. Once it enters the mouth, the poison will take effect instantly, and there's no time to save it. Gang leader Shui, you just need to find a chance to let Huyuni from the Misty School. Oh, he doesn't need to. You just need to let Li Jian, Huyuni, Zhang Xiaohu, Wenwenhai, and the others take it. Then, the position of gang leader of the Misty School will be yours, right? Shui Yuping heard this and hesitated. The poison is very effective, but the others are also very vigilant. It's very difficult to succeed. Last time, when Vice Alliance leader you gave me the poison, I thought of all sorts of methods. In the end, I could only feed it to Huyuni through a child. This time, before he finished speaking, the green-robed man suddenly, the green-robed man was a light, was it? Just as the green-robed man finished speaking, the surroundings suddenly lit up. When the green-robed man saw this, he didn't say anything else. His body remained in the same posture as he suddenly jumped up and threw himself diagonally toward the place where the lights were not yet lit up. Since you're here, do you still want to leave? A voice sounded. It was Zhang Xiaohu. He moved his sword, and a light flashed as he chased after the green-robed man. Behind Zhang Xiaohu, Shui Yuping was surrounded by bright lights. Huyuni, Li Jian, Lu Qingyang, and the others were all in sight. In front of Huyuni, there was a person with tears on her face and an expression of disbelief. Shui Tiantian. Father, is this really you? Shui Tiantian didn't wait for the green-robed man to come closer and asked. Shui Yuping, who was wearing black clothes and had a black cloth covering her face, panicked at first. She quickly looked around and saw that the green-robed man was already lit up. There was no place for her to escape. When Shui Tiantian asked, Shui Yuping had already calmed down. Looking at the disappointed Shui Tiantian, she stood quietly and didn't say a word. Father, do you know how much effort did the great grandmaster put in to teach the boy martial arts? For the boy to gain a foothold in the Misty School, the great grandmaster was willing to offend the second grandmaster and gang leader Zhang. For the boy's future, the great grandmaster was willing to let father be the gang leader instead of him. Why'd he do all this? Wasn't it all because of the boy? Even if you came to the Misty School to fight for the position of gang leader, that's fine. You're the deputy gang leader of the Misty School. It's perfectly justified for you to be the gang leader. But why did you poison the great grandmaster? Through the boy's hands. Aren't you trying to frame the boy for being heartless and unjust? What's the difference between this and the boy personally poisoning the great grandmaster? The more Shui Tiantian spoke, the more tears streamed down his face. He really couldn't associate this person in front of him, who held poison in his hands and wanted to poison the higher-ups of the Misty School, with his father, who was so loving that he couldn't even bear to scold him. Shui Yuping, you heartless thing. As soon as Hu Yuni spoke, he started coughing nonstop. Shui Tiantian habitually took out a jade bottle from his chest, but just as he was about to pour out the elixir, he immediately realized something. With a disgusted expression, he threw the jade bottle on the ground and smashed it into pieces. Li Jian came over to support Hu Yuni. When he finally stopped coughing, Hu Yuni scolded angrily again. "Have always been worried about your wild ambition and that you would harm the Misty School. But when I thought about how you're Tiantian's father, no matter how bad it is, I still have to give Tiantian some face. I was originally the deputy gang leader of the Misty School. Even if I became the gang leader, I would have to pass the position to Tiantian in a few years. It would be considered as restoring the orthodoxy of the Misty School. So, I let you return to the Misty School, and even fought against all the disciples of the Misty School for you. You want me to put my face? Where should I put it? How can I face the dead fourth brother and master?" Hu Yuni spat out a mouthful of blood. Under the light, it actually faintly turned black. He could no longer support himself and collapsed on the ground. "Big brother," Li Jian cried out in grief and supported him. "You brat, I've long found you an eyesore. If it wasn't for second brother stopping me, I would have chopped you into minced meat long ago. Come, eat my axe." Lu Qingyang bared his fangs and brandished his claws, about to pounce on him. At this moment, a figure flew back from afar. It was Zhang Xiaohu. "Big gang leader, you're back?" Lu Qingyang saw him and unconsciously stopped. "Shui Yuping, what else do you have to say?" Zhang Xiaohu turned around and reprimanded. "Commander Jiang, which is also Vice Alliance Leader Jiang, I'm afraid you're Jiang Yan from the Righteous Alliance. Although I only used my sword to seriously injure him and did not take him down, but your conversation earlier, I heard all. Why are you wasting time with him? Let me take him down first." Lu Qingyang waved his axe and was about to attack again. Shui Yuping, who had been standing there silently, opened his mouth. He took off the black cloth covering his face, revealing his handsome face. He looked at Shui Tiantian and smiled bitterly. "Tiantian, don't blame Daddy. If it wasn't for you, if Daddy didn't love you so much, perhaps Daddy wouldn't have fallen to such a state. Oh, perhaps he would have fallen to such a state long ago." Then, looking at Li Jian and the limp Hu Yuni, Shui Yuping continued. "That year, Daddy was accidentally captured by gang leader O of the Misty School. He was going to commit suicide, but he missed you and your mother. Gang leader O also took you and your mother as hostages and wanted me to join the Misty School. Daddy had no choice but to become the deputy gang leader of the Misty School. Of course, the Misty School treated Daddy and you very well. If it wasn't for the Misty School being destroyed, you would have become the gang leader of the Misty School in a few decades. That was Daddy's wish. But the Misty School was destroyed. Daddy and you were both on the run. You still had Elder Hu to protect you, but Daddy was all alone. Although the years of wandering were miserable, Daddy thought. As long as you were in this world, Daddy couldn't give up the chance to live. But unfortunately, the heavens didn't open their eyes and Daddy was captured by the Righteous Alliance. Daddy didn't intend to live, but they used you to threaten Daddy. If Daddy didn't agree to their conditions, they would have killed you first. Daddy knew the Righteous Alliance's methods. Your Misty School only had a few thousand people on the run. Among them, there were also spies from the Righteous Alliance. If they really made a move, how could a little child like you be their match? Daddy had no choice had no choice but to join the Righteous Alliance. In exchange for your safety, Tian, you can blame Daddy. Blame Daddy for being ruthless, but you can't blame Daddy for not caring about you. If you want to blame someone, you can only blame this bloody Jianghu. Blame that no one has the ability to protect you. Shui Yuping, you poisoned my big brother, and you still don't." Lu Qingyang was furious. Just as he was about to berate Shui Yuping, he was stopped by Zhang Xiao. Looking at Shui Yuping's doting gaze towards Shui Tiantian, Zhang Xiaohu fell into deep thought. AI, if you knew this day would come, why did you do it in the first place? If I didn't agree to Clan Leader O's request, I would have died a few years earlier. Why should I continue to suffer in this world? As he said this, he crushed the jade bottle in his hand and poured the pills into his mouth. However, when the elixir entered his mouth, Shui Yuping was obviously stunned. She immediately looked at Zhang Xiaohu and opened her mouth to say something. However, when she saw Shui Tiantian's expression, she didn't say anything. She just shook her head and said, Tiantian, in the future, Daddy won't exist in this world anymore. You have to be obedient. Listen to sect leader Zhang. Be a true disciple of the Misty School. Daddy, Shui Tiantian couldn't bear it anymore. After running a few steps, he stopped and looked at Hu Yuni. Hu Yuni knew that Shui Yuping had made up her mind. He only had time to wave his hand before he spat out another mouthful of blood and fainted completely. Shui Tiantian's face was filled with joy. However, when he turned around, he heard Shui Yuping's last words, Tiantian, Daddy, I'm sorry. Then, Shui Yuping slapped the top of her head. Immediately, she opened her eyes and looked at Shui Tiantian. Then, she fell to the ground on her back. Daddy, Shui Tiantian cried loudly. He rushed forward and hugged Shui Yuping's body, which was gradually turning cold, and cried bitterly. Behind him, Li Jian also shouted, Big brother. At this moment, blood kept flowing out from the corner of Hu Yuni's mouth. His breathing was also intermittent. It was very weak. Please cast a monthly vote. Please cast a recommendation vote. Please collect. Please tip. Thank you. Chapter 1130. Seeing that Hu Yuni was dying, Li Jian, Lu Qingyang, Wen Hai, and the others were all sad. Zhang Xiaohu also had mixed feelings. Although Hu Yuni had tried to stop him from becoming the Grandmaster of the Misty School, and even suspected that he was a spy of the Cult of Fragrance, it was all for the sake of the Misty School, the successor of the Misty School, and the legacy of O Peng, who had died on the Misty Peak. Therefore, putting himself in Hu Yuni's shoes, Zhang Xiaohu did not resent him too much. Alas, maybe it's because he knows that he's dying and can't last long. So he must find an absolutely reliable Grandmaster for the Misty School. Zhang Xiaohu thought. Shui Yuping is also pitiful, being threatened by the alliance of righteous sects. If I didn't have a brother who is so powerful, alas, I'm sure Nanjing Yi of the Cult of Fragrance would have killed him. Thinking of his brother and seeing the dirty blood on Hu Yuni's mouth, Zhang Xiaohu's mind lit up. He shouted, Elderly, come with me, I have an idea. Grandmaster, you said you have an idea? Li Jian was pleasantly surprised, but he still couldn't believe it. Yes, I really do have an idea. Zhang Xiaohu looked up at the sky and said anxiously, But we don't have enough time. Come with me. Zhang Xiaohu shouted. He turned around and ordered, Deputy Grandmaster 1, please bring the bodies of Shui Tiantian and Shui Yuping to the conference hall. Also, don't leak out what happened here, or you'll be killed. Then, he urged Li Jiandao, Elderly, carry Elder Hu and follow me to the meeting hall. Li Jian didn't understand what Zhang Xiao meant, but when he heard Zhang Xiaohu say that he had a way to save Hu Yuni, why would he care so much? He stretched out his hand and hugged Hu Yuni's body, which was gradually turning cold. Then, he executed the ethereal steps and chased after Zhang Xiaohu. Lu Qingyang, Lu Yueming, and the others also quickly chased after him. Only Wen Hai stayed behind to command the ethereal sect's disciples to retrieve Shui Yuping's corpse. Before long, the meeting hall was right in front of them. Li Jian suddenly realized something and said in a trembling voice, Grand Gang Leader Zhang, my big brother's injuries could only be healed by that expert from the Tao of Immortality. At this moment, Zhang Xiaohu couldn't care less. Without turning his head, he said, That's right, but I'm not sure. Li Jian's face was filled with ecstasy. He hurriedly said, It's fine. The expert from the Tao of Immortality doesn't interact with us martial artists. Even if Grand Gang Leader Zhang doesn't have the confidence to invite him out, but But as long as Grand Gang leader Zhang has the intention, this Li will be deeply grateful. Zhang Xiaohu smiled bitterly. He didn't want to say that the expert from the Tao of Immortality could be summoned at any time. He was just worried that the so-called expert from the Tao of Immortality might not be able to save Hu Yuni. Thus, he could only mumble, "Elder who is wholeheartedly devoted to the Misty School." This seat will naturally do his part. When everyone arrived at the conference hall, Zhang Xiaohu instructed, "Place Elder Hu on the ground. This seat will go and find that expert from the Tao of Immortality." After speaking, he walked behind the screen and entered the secret passage. What's wrong? Why is the expert from the Tao of Immortality in the Misty School's secret chamber? Li Jian, Lu Qingyang, and Lu Yueming were puzzled. Without the permission of the sect leader of the Misty School, no one was allowed to enter the secret chamber in the conference hall. Thus, Li Jian and the rest didn't have the opportunity to enter. However, Li Jian and the rest immediately understood. Their faces were filled with joy. Since the expert from the Tao of Immortality was related to the Misty School, he would naturally know about the secret chamber. If the expert from the Tao of Immortality was in the secret chamber of the Misty School, who would have the most confidence? Of course, it would be the disciples of the Misty School. They would no longer have to fear the attacks of the Aroma Cult or the Righteous Tao Alliance. How could Li Jian not be happy? But will the expert from the Tao of Immortality be willing to help Big Brother? Li Jian couldn't help but feel nervous. Zhang Xiaohu had been in the secret chamber for a long time, but he still hadn't come out. Li Jian was a little anxious. He walked to the front of the secret chamber and stuck his head out to take a look. At this time, there was some movement outside the conference hall. Wenwenhai had returned with Shui Tiantian and Shui Yupeng's corpse. Seeing that the conference hall was silent, Wenwenhai didn't dare to speak. Only Shui Tiantian was sobbing softly. Her eyes were still looking at her father, unwilling to move away. Yes, only when you lose something will you know how precious it is. Although it was filthy in the eyes of others, what about in Tiantian's eyes? All that was left was the fatherly love that would never return. With a kacha sound, the door of the secret chamber opened. Everyone looked at the secret passage with hopeful eyes. The first person to come out was Zhang Xiaohu. There was no joy or disappointment on his face. Everyone's eyes were fixed on Zhang Xiaohu's back. When Zhang Xiaohua appeared in front of everyone, everyone was stunned. However, when they wanted to look behind Zhang Xiaohua again, the door of the secret chamber had already closed. "You? Ren Xiaoyao?" Wenwenhai was the first to cry out in alarm. "You came here on Abbess Jing Yi's orders?" Wenwenhai suddenly realized, and then his face became gloomy. No, if this was a disciple of the pill expansion hall of the fragrance cult, he must have some immortal secret pills. If he took them out, he might be able to save Hu Yuni's life. But Zhang Xiaohu actually had dealings with a disciple of the fragrance cult, and even hid him in the secret chamber of the Misty School. Even if he saved Hu Yuni might not be able to accept his kindness. As for Zhang Xiaohu himself, how could he explain this? When Wenwenhai said this, Li Jian and Lu Qingyang's faces also changed. They seemed to have thought of the same thing as Wenwenhai. However, Lu Yueming was stunned at first, and then he asked curiously, Isn't this Zhang Xiaohua? How? How could it be a disciple of the fragrance cult? Ren Xiaoyao, who is that?" Hearing this, Wenwenhai was stunned on the spot, as if he was struck by lightning. He had suspected the relationship between Zhang Xiaohua and Ren Xiaoyao on Shixin Peak, but later he was dispelled by Ren Xiaoyao's identity. Now that he saw Zhang Xiaohua, of course, he thought that Zhang Xiaohua was Ren Xiaoyao. Lu Yueming had never seen Zhang Xiaohua on Shixin Peak, and now that it was night, under the lights of course, he thought that Zhang Xiaohua was still the Zhang Xiaohua from a few years ago, so he blurted it out. When Wenhai suddenly pointed at Zhang Xiaohua and asked Zhang Xiaohu, "Xiaohu, is he your biological brother Zhang Xiaohua, Ren Xiaoyao on Shixin Peak, the immortal master who recovered all of our martial arts?" Zhang Xiaohu looked at Zhang Xiaohua, who was a little unhappy, touched his nose and smiled. "It seems yes. Could it be that he is also the immortal master who used a flying sword to assassinate a deputy chief of the Righteous Alliance and 4 old consecrators on Piao Peak? Is he also related to our Misty School? Liu Yiming said in disbelief. Yes, Xiaohua is my biological brother, so of course he is related to our Misty School. That day on Piao Peak, it was Xiaohua who killed Ban Fuguwei and the others. Zhang Xiaohu looked at Li Jian and the others and slowly explained. Hearing that Zhang Xiaohua was not a disciple of the fragrance cult, Li Jian and the others' faces softened a little, but they were still full of doubts. After all, this Zhang Xiaohua was only a teenager. How is this possible? Liu Yiming almost jumped up. Wen Wenhai had seen Zhang Xiaohua on Shixin Peak, but he had not seen Zhang Xiaohua since he saved Zhang Xiaohua and Zhang Xiaolong on the official road. If it was not for Zhang Xiaohua's chivalrous heart, Liu Yiming would have forgotten about him on the way back to the Misty School. Who would have thought that in just a few years, this young man had turned into an immortal master, replacing the image of the old immortal master in his heart with a youthful face and white hair? No one could accept this comparison in a short time. Yes, it's me. Zhang Xiaohua glared at Liu Yiming and Wen Wenhai. He still remembered what they had said about him behind his back. He said with a smile, "You didn't expect that the stupid Zhang Xiaohua who couldn't even practice the Arhut fist, the unlucky Zhang Xiaohua who died in Jianghu long ago, was actually the immortal master in your hearts?" Wen Wenhai and Liu Yiming heard this and immediately blushed. They knew that Zhang Xiaohua had heard what they had said on the way back. How could they still doubt his identity as an immortal master? They both blushed and stepped forward. They bowed and said, "We spoke rudely. Please punish us." Zhang Xiaohua was a little embarrassed. Who were these two? They were people who had saved him in the early years. He had just casually said it. Zhang Xiaohua immediately flicked his sleeve, and the two were lifted up by an invisible force. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, "Two heroes, why are you still so polite with me? I was just joking. Immortal Master, please reach out and look at my big brother's injury." Li Jian stepped forward and bowed respectfully. "Oh, elderly, get up quickly. There's no need to look." Zhang Xiaohua quickly helped Li Jian up. When Li Jian heard this, his heart thumped and he wanted to kneel down. However, how could Zhang Xiaohua let him do so? He raised his hand, and Li Jian couldn't move. He asked, "Elderly, why are you doing this? Please be merciful and save my big brother's life." Li Jian had never seen Zhang Xiaohua before, so he didn't have any thoughts about him. He just thought that he was an immortal master. "I didn't say I wouldn't save him. Elderly, although the poison is about to invade Elder Hu's heart, but it hasn't happened yet. I saw it as soon as I came out. Of course, I don't need to see it now," Zhang Xiaohua said with a smile. Li Jian breathed a sigh of relief and was about to speak when Lu Qingyang next to him shouted, "Immortal Master, let's save my big brother first." And, okay. Zhang Xiaohua took out a jade bottle from his bosom, poured out a pill, and handed it to Zhang Xiaohu. He said, "This is the antidote pill you took. Feed it to Elder Hu and the poison will be removed." And Zhang Xiaohu didn't hesitate to take it. He walked to Hu Yuni's side and fed the antidote pill to Hu Yuni. Lu Qingyang wanted to go forward and help, but he was stopped by Li Jian. Zhang Xiaohua's antidote pill was really effective. After a moment, Hu Yuni woke up and shouted, "Shui Yuping, you beast!" Chapter 1131. When Hu Yuni shouted this sentence, he spat out another mouthful of dirty blood. Zhang Xiaohu knew what was going to happen next. He raised his hand and hugged Hu Yuni. He glanced at him and said, "Master, come with me." Wen Wenhai didn't know why, but he followed Zhang Xiaohu out. Li Jian was stunned and turned to look at Zhang Xiaohua. Zhang Xiaohua waved her hand and said, "Don't worry. I will return you an unpoisoned elder Hu in a while." Li Jian was overjoyed and bowed again. "Thank you, immortal. AI, no need, no need. It was second brother who brought me here. If you want to thank someone, thank him." "Yes, I know." Li Jian's face hid his surprise. For a moment, everyone was amazed by what they saw in front of them. No one dared to speak loudly. Only Shui Tian was shocked by Zhang Xiaohua's young age. Then, he remembered his own life experience and Shui Yuping, who had just passed away. He couldn't help but cry again. After a moment, Shui Tiantian seemed to have made a decision. He stood up and walked to Li Jian. He bowed and said, "Martial Ancestorly." Li Jian looked at Shui Tiantian. He didn't know what attitude he should have towards him. He just waved his hand. "If you have anything to say, you should wait for Elder Hu to come back. You can say it to him." Martial Ancestorly, disciple, father did such a vicious thing. Although disciple didn't know about it. But it was disciple who personally sent the highly toxic medicinal pill into Great Grandmaster's mouth. Great Grandmaster's poisoning was also done by disciple. So, disciple doesn't dare to ask for Great Master's forgiveness. I also don't have the face to stay in front of Great Master. I also don't have the face to stay in the Misty School. Now, before Great Master wakes up, disciple asks Martial Ancestor Li to expel disciple from the Misty School and let disciple leave alone. This, Li Jian couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. Shui Yuping did such a thing. In fact, it had nothing to do with Shui Tiantian. But, as Shui Tiantian said, he personally fed the poison to Hu Yuni. Even if Hu Yuni didn't mind, how could Shui Tiantian still stay in front of Hu Yuni? But Hu Yuni loved Shui Tiantian, and Li Jian had seen it with his own eyes. If he were to dispose of Shui Tiantian without permission, he was afraid that it would be difficult for Hu Yuni to explain himself when he woke up. At this time, Shui Tiantian turned around and bowed to Zhang Xiaohua again. He said respectfully, "Thank you, Immortal Elder, for saving the Great Ancestor. This makes me feel relieved. If it weren't for Immortal Elder, I would have gone with the Great Ancestor." Zhang Xiaohua reached out and patted Shui Tiantian's head, looking like an expert. "You child, don't think so much. This has nothing to do with you. You are just being used by others. But I have to repay my father's debt with my own hands." Shui Tiantian's eyes were filled with tears. He didn't know what to say. In short, this Misty School, I don't have the face to stay any longer. Hearing this, Zhang Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat. She smiled and said, "All right, I heard from my second brother that you used a strange fist technique to compete with him a few days ago." Shui Tiantian's face turned red, and he said embarrassedly, "I don't dare. It's just a small skill. How can it be compared with Master Zhang's? What insignificant technique?" Zhang Xiaohua was displeased. "Show me his set of techniques. Now? Here?" Shui Tiantian was stunned. "Well, here, you can do it." Shui Tiantian didn't know why Zhang Xiaohua was like this, but since it was the Immortal Elder's order, how could he disobey? Shui Tiantian endured the pain, and his chi sank into his dantian. He focused his mind, held his breath, and calmed his heart. He performed the 108 moves of the Big Dipper magical fist technique that Zhang Qingyue taught him from beginning to end. Zhang Xiaohua held her chin and shook her head or nodded as she watched. Li Jian and the others were at a loss. After Shui Tiantian finished performing the Big Dipper magical fist technique, Zhang Xiaohua turned to ask, "Hero Lu, what do you think of this fist technique?" This, Lu Yueming was stunned. He thought for a while and said, "Immortal Elder, do you want to hear the truth or a lie?" "Ha ha ha!" Zhang Xiaohua laughed. "Hero Lu saved my life in the past. You don't have to call me Immortal Elder anymore. Just call me by my name." Lu Yueming shook his head like a rattle drum. "It was just a coincidence that I saved you that day. It was effortless. Moreover, it was God who borrowed my hands. Even if it wasn't me, someone else would have done it. I don't dare to take the credit. Also, Immortal Elder healed my dantian and connected my bones. This has already repaid the favor of that day. How can I mention it again? In the martial arts world, those who are more powerful are the teachers. Since Immortal Elder has already set foot on the path of immortality, you are already beyond my reach. I am convinced that you are Immortal Elder, but if I call you by your secular name, I am afraid. I will feel uneasy." Zhang Xiaohua was stunned. He didn't expect Lu Yueming to come up with so many reasons. He had no choice but to smile and say, "Then you can call me whatever you want, Hero Lu." Then he asked, "Hero Lu, do you think that this fist technique is quite bad?" "Yes, that's right. Louis Wiming said bluntly, I have observed that many of Tian Tian's fist techniques are plagiarized from other fist techniques, such as the common Liu fist, Luan fist, and so on. However, some of the moves are the same, while some are different. What kind of power can these fist techniques have when put together? Can there be no flaws? Hero Liu, you are right. This fist technique, when used by Tian Tian, is indeed full of flaws. However, the flaws are in the moves that Hero Liu seems to be the same as other fist techniques. If all the fist techniques are different, then the flaws will no longer exist. This? Louis Wiming was speechless. He asked curiously, how did a mortal elder know so much about this fist technique of my misty school? To tell you the truth, Hero Liu, when I was in Huanxi Villa, I was taught fist techniques by Captain Tian Shu. However, I was too stupid to practice Luan fist or Liu fist. This fist technique is made by taking some moves from those fist techniques and putting them together. Not only was Louis Wiming surprised, but Li Jian and Lu Qingyang were also surprised. They said, that's impossible. This fist technique was recorded by Zhang Qingyue at a price of 1,000 taels of silver by faction leader O. Lu Qingyang grinned and gave a thumbs up. He praised, Immortal Elder, you are really a genius. How old were you at that time? You could already create a fist technique by yourself? It's nothing. Zhang Xiaohua was also modest. It's all a blessing. Then he looked at Li Jian and said seriously, it's just that, even though this fist technique was sold to the ethereal sect, but looking at Tian Tian's practice, it's just barely passable. It's too different from the fist technique in the manual. So, I'm thinking of buying the manual back and letting my disciples practice it alone. Immortal Elder's disciple? Li Jian was stunned. Which sect is a mortal elder from? I'm preparing to establish the Big Dipper sect. When the time comes, I'll definitely invite Elder Li and the others to attend the ceremony. Zhang Xiaohua said with a smile. Beta School, I understand. No matter how stupid Li Jian was, he had already thought of the rumors about Rejuvenation Valley. Nie Qinyu had spread the name of Beta School that day. Since a mortal elder wants to establish a sect, then this fist technique manual can be given to a mortal elder as a congratulatory gift. However, I'm only an elder and not a faction leader. Secondly, I've never heard of this fist technique manual. Even if I want to give it to a mortal elder, I can't. Zhang Xiaohua frowned and was about to speak when Shu Tian timidly said, Immortal Elder, I know the whereabouts of the fist technique manual. Where is it? Zhang Xiaohua asked curiously. Shu Tian thought for a moment and probed. If I give the fist technique manual to a mortal elder, can a mortal elder agree to a small condition of mine? Condition? Zhang Xiaohua's tone became slightly cold. It didn't matter if he wanted the fist technique manual or not. He just didn't want it to be leaked. Now that he heard Shu Tian talk about conditions with him, he couldn't help but become slightly angry. What conditions? Tell me, Zhang Xiaohua said coldly. Shu Tian seemed to hear the anger in Zhang Xiaohua's voice, but he gritted his teeth and pointed at Shu Yupeng's corpse. Immortal Elder, although my father did something wrong to the Misty School, but he was forced to do so. Now that he's dead, I hope the Misty School can let bygones be bygones and bury my father properly. Don't let his corpse be exposed in the countryside. This is your condition? Zhang Xiaohua was stunned. Yes, this is my condition. As long as a mortal elder agrees, I'll immediately tell you the whereabouts of the fist technique manual. Shu Tian nodded. That fist technique manual is in your possession? If I take action, do you think you can protect it? Shu Tian's face turned pale instantly. His small hands naturally covered his chest. At this moment, Zhang Xiaohua smiled and turned to bow to Li Jian. He asked, Elderly, although Shu Yupeng was guilty, he could atone for his crime with his death. Shu Tian's filial piety is commendable. I would like to agree to his condition. Elderly, please agree to it. Li Jian hurriedly returned the bow and said, Master Zhang brought Shu Yupeng's corpse back and told his disciples not to reveal what happened today. Otherwise, they would be killed without mercy. I think Master Zhang didn't intend to reveal this matter to the public. Shui Yuping's corpse must be buried with dignity. Although I'm not the master of Misty School, this condition, I agree to it on behalf of Master Zhang. Shui Tiantian was overjoyed. He bowed to Li Jian and said, "Thank you, second master." Elderly. Li Jian smiled bitterly and helped Shui Tiantian up. He thought to himself, it seems like this kid is determined not to stay in Misty School. Following that, Shui Tiantian took out an oil bag from his bosom and carefully opened it, revealing a brand new fist art manual inside. Then, he handed it to Zhang Xiaohua and said, "Thank you, immortal elder, for your help. This fist art, please accept it." Why? Why is it so new? Zhang Xiaohua asked curiously. This is the only thing my master left me. When I miss my master, I take it out to have a look. I don't dare to tarnish it, so I forget it. Shui Tiantian, since it was given to you by Zhang Qingyue, it's the only thing he left you. How can I take it back? You keep it for yourself. Zhang Xiaohua said sadly and waved her hand. Please cast a monthly vote. Please cast a recommendation vote. Please collect. Please tip. Thank you. Chapter 1132. Thank you for your mercy. Shui Tiantian's face was filled with joy as he put the manual away. Zhang Xiaohua then asked, "How many copies of this manual are there?" Reporting to Immortal, there is only one copy. Then how many disciples practice this fist technique? Reporting to Immortal Elder, Master is also not used to this fist manual. So, Master first taught this lowly one, then this lowly one taught others. This lowly one used this fist manual to teach 8 people. As for whether there are other disciples, this lowly one does not know. What about these 8 people? Reporting to Immortal, among the 8 people, 4 of them traveled with me, and 4 of them stayed in Misty Mountain Villa. I don't know where they are now. As for the other 4, except for one who died of illness, the other 3 are in Young Eagle Hall. How are the other 3 practicing this fist technique? Zhang Xiaohua asked. Reporting to Mortal Elder, this fist technique is really not easy to practice. As long as you practice any other fist technique slightly, the moves in this fist technique will immediately go out of shape. The other 3 junior brothers had long stopped practicing when they escaped from Ethereal Sect. Only this lowly one has been practicing because I miss my master. Good. Zhang Xiaohua nodded with a smile and asked again, "You want Martial Ancestor Li to expel you from Misty School. Do you have any plans?" No. Shui Tiantian's face was gloomy. To him, Jianghu was really dangerous. He really didn't know what to do in the future. Ha ha. Zhang Xiaohua laughed. My Beidou School's 7 Stars Palace already has an owner. Shui Tiantian, you have already practiced my Beidou School's Fist of the Big Dipper. It can be said that you have fate with my Beidou School. Are you willing to enter my Beidou School, a Biai's disciple? This, Shui Tiantian almost couldn't believe his ears. Li Jian, Lu Qingyang, and Lu Yueming were also shocked. Their faces showed envy as they looked at Shui Tiantian. Immortal, don't deceive me. Shui Tiantian looked at Zhang Xiaohua blankly. Why would I lie to you? My Beidou School's boxing manual has already been given to you. Are you still doubting me? Zhang Xiaohua rubbed her nose and laughed. Master, disciple Shui Tiantian greets Master. Shui Tiantian fell to the ground and cried. This time, Zhang Xiaohua did not help him up. Instead, she looked up with a smile at Hu Yuni, who was being helped in by Wen Hai and Zhang Xiao. At this moment, Hu Yuni's face was clearly rosy and was no longer as dark as before. Big brother, Li Jian and Lu Qingyang also saw him. They both ran over and asked in surprise, Big brother, are you all right? First Elder's poison is no longer a problem. I think you will ask Xiaohua to give him a few more pills. Zhang Xiaohu had just said. Zhang Xiaohua interjected, you don't need to take any more detoxification pills. Elder whose poison was poisoned by the righteous Tao Alliance. It's different from the poison of Chuan Xiang cult. You only need 1 detoxification pill to detoxify him. Sect leader Zhang, what's going on? Hu Yuni turned around and asked. After listening to Zhang Xiaohu's explanation of what happened in Mo Xian's palace, Hu Yuni's face was filled with shame. He said in a low voice, "Sect leader Zhang, this old man. This subordinate is really gauging the heart of a gentleman with the yardstick of a villain. Please forgive me. Elder Hu, look at what you're saying. This lord knows that you don't have long to live, so you want to make arrangements after your death. As for this lord, there are many things that Elder Hu doesn't understand about my background and the way I do things. Therefore, it's normal for Elder Hu to misunderstand that it was arranged by Chuanxiang cult. I'm ashamed. As Hu Yuni spoke, he walked in front of Zhang Xiaohua and bowed. Immortal Elder, I believe that all the things that happened in my Misty School recently were caused by Immortal Elder. Zhang Xiaohua flicked her sleeve and supported Hu Yuni. She smiled and said, Elder Hu's body is weak now. Let's sit down and talk. After Hu Yuni sat down, Zhang Xiaohua nodded. These things were all done by I. Immortal Elder also bestowed Du Feng and Ding Xiao with their martial arts. Yes, all the disciples of my Misty School who had their joints crushed and dantians pierced were all saved by Immortal Elder. Yes, when my Misty School counterattacked Ethereal Peak, the Righteous Alliance's deputy alliance master and 4 old consecrators were also killed by Immortal Elder. Yes, sect leader Zhang's immortal cultivation was also bestowed by Immortal Elder. It wasn't I, but he received the legacy of her Misty School. Then my Misty School's immortal cultivation legacy was also passed down by Immortal Elder. My Misty School's immortal cultivation legacy token was also bestowed by Immortal Elder. Yes, sect leader Zhang subduing the disciples of the Righteous Alliance and Chuanxiang cult was also done by Immortal Elder. I also tried, but in the end it was still because of sect leader Zhang's personal charm. Every time Hu Yuni asked a question, Zhang Xiaohua would reply with a sentence. Everyone in the meeting hall felt their hearts beat violently. Every sentence represented a turning point that would determine the fate of the ethereal sect. Every sentence represented a grace that the Misty School would never be able to repay. Every sentence represented that Zhang Xiaohua should be the true master of the Misty School. Immortal Elder, forgive this old man's stupidity, but please take a seat and accept a bow from the Misty School's disciples. Hu Yuni finally said seriously, if not for Immortal Elder, my Misty School would have long been consigned to eternal damnation and become someone else's puppet. If I don't bow to you, this old man will never be able to rest in peace. Zhang Xiaohua hurriedly waved her hand and pointed at Wen Hai and Lu Yueming, saying, Swordsman Wen and Swordsman Lu were also I's saviors back then. Even he didn't accept a bow from I, so how can I accept a bow from them now? Hu Yuni thought for a moment and nodded, saying, since Immortal Elder says so, this old man won't force you. However, this old man would like to bow to Immortal Elder once on behalf of the dead 4th brother and a master in heaven. This is to thank Immortal Elder for preserving the bloodline of my Misty School. Zhang Xiaohua was put in a difficult position. Li Jian persuaded, Immortal Elder, please don't decline. This is our Misty School's sincerity, so please accept this bow. When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, she raised her eyebrows and said, in that case, I won't be pretentious. I've done so much for your Misty School, so at least I've gained something. Hu Yuni was overjoyed and respectfully knelt on the ground. Zhang Xiaohua accepted the bow and hurriedly helped Hu Yuni up. However, before she could say anything, Hu Yuni said, this old man has always had a question. Would Immortal Elder please enlighten me? Zhang Xiaohua helped Hu Yuni to a chair and said with a smile, feel free to ask. I have already told you everything I know. Yes, this old man wants to know. When my Misty School was destroyed by the Incense Cult, the Dalan Temple, and the Righteous Alliance, why didn't Immortal Elder do anything? Even if Immortal Elder didn't do anything back then, my Misty School wouldn't have suffered such a tragic fate. It turned out that ever since Hu Yuni woke up, Zhang Xiaohu had been trying to explain. There were still some things that he hadn't explained clearly. When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, she frowned slightly. Hu Yuni's question was rather disrespectful. However, after thinking for a while, she still said, it's not that I didn't do anything. Of course, I was still overseas. In terms of time, I had just stepped onto the path of immortality, so I didn't have the strength to stop that disaster. Yes, I believe that Shu Yunfei of your sect must have told Elder Hu that when he met I in the wilderness. I had just returned from overseas. At that time, your sect was already in disarray. Oh, that's right. Immortal Elder, now that you mention it, this old man really does remember. Immortal Elder seemed to have asked where the incense cult was at that time. Immortal Elder indeed went to find sect leader Zhang, who Yuni suddenly understood. Haha, Elder Hu, you can ask my second brother about the incense cult later. Great hero one has also met I. Zhang Xiaohua said with a smile. Immortal Elder's talent is truly unimaginable. In just a few years, it's actually so profound. Even so, there are still people who say that I's stupid. Zhang Xiaohua still didn't let Wenwenhai and Lu Yueming off the hook. Wenwenhai glanced at Lu Yueming, who had an awkward expression on his face, and immediately understood what was going on. I'm just kidding, great hero one. Captain, he has been muttering like this. I'll have to talk to him later. Zhang Xiaohua laughed again. I wouldn't dare. Wenwenhai and Lu Yueming also laughed. It was as if the Zhang Xiaohua now was the real Zhang Xiaohua and not some immortal elder. Oh, by the way, Elder Hu, just now I boldly accepted Shui Tian as my disciple. However, he is still a disciple of the Misty School. Elder Hu, please be magnanimous and grant I my wish. Yeah, I come here, Tian. Hu Yuni raised his hand and beckoned. Shui Tian had been kneeling on the ground and didn't get up. When he heard this, he stood up and walked to Hu Yuni's side. Hu Yuni reached out and touched Shui Tian's head with his hand very dotingly. He said lovingly, Tian, your father's matter is your father's. It has nothing to do with you. Even if you fed me the poison, I won't blame you because you didn't know it all. So, you must remember that from the moment your great ancestor found out the truth of the matter until he fainted, he never blamed you. Great ancestor, Shui Tian cried again and threw himself into Hu Yuni's arms. Io, second brother, I have an urgent matter. I'll leave first. This pill is for Elder Hu. Zhang Xiaohua suddenly shouted and threw a pill to Zhang Xiaohu. Then, she turned around and disappeared. Everyone was shocked and puzzled. They all looked at Zhang Xiaohu. Zhang Xiaohu smiled and said, Xiaohua, this is a method of the immortal Tao. Look at me, I don't know either. As for what urgent matter Zhang Xiaohua had, Zhang Xiaohu didn't say anything. Shui Tian cried bitterly and didn't know about this. Hu Yuni didn't notice and waited for Shui Tian to stop crying before comforting him. However, since you have made up your mind, and it is indeed inappropriate for you to stay in the Misty School now, then follow the immortal to cultivate. But when you succeed in your cultivation in the future, you must remember my Misty School and take care of my Misty School. Yes, please rest assured, great ancestor. This disciple will definitely not forget the Misty School's great kindness to this disciple. Also, great ancestors care for this disciple. Yes, immortal elder. Hu Yuni looked up, but Zhang Xiaohua had already disappeared. Elder Hu, Little Blossom has something to do, so I'll leave first. Before I leave, I'll leave this pill for the first elder. The first elder will take this pill in a while. If nothing unexpected happens, the first elder's internal injuries and damaged meridians will be healed. Chapter 1133. Really? Hu Yuni was pleasantly surprised. Of course it's true. Li Jian said, Faction leader Zhang, you must have used this elixir to heal your subordinates' internal injuries back then, right? Elderly is right. It is this pill. Zhang Xiaohu was now very familiar with the meridian-soothing pill and recognized it at a glance. Big brother, hurry up and take it. I'll wait here to protect you. Lu Qingyang shouted. Here? That's not appropriate. Hu Yuni was a little hesitant. This is such a heaven-sent opportunity. Big brother, hurry up and take it. If anything happens, it'll be too late to regret it. Hu Yuni nodded, then looked at Zhang Xiaohu and said, Sect Leader Zhang, please give the order to expel Shu Tian from the Misty School. Yes, I understand. Zhang Xiao nodded and said to Shui Tian, Shui Tian, I expel you from the Misty School today. From now on, your actions have nothing to do with the Misty School. You are no longer a disciple of the Misty School. Do you understand? This disciple understands. Thank you, sect leader Zhang. Although she knew that her future was bright, although she knew that she would be able to see these amiable grandmasters and martial uncles in the future, although she was already mentally prepared, but when she heard Zhang Xiaohu say that she was no longer a disciple of the Misty School, Shui Tian couldn't help but feel sad, and tears fell from her eyes. All right, Tian, return to the Young Eagle Hall, as usual. There's no need to rush to pack your things. I'll take you to see your martial uncles and senior brothers tomorrow. Yes, I'll follow sect leader's orders. Shui Tian's voice was unusually loud. After when Wenhai left with Shui Tian, Hu Yuni swallowed the meridian soothing pill under everyone's gaze. He sat cross-legged in the meeting hall and quietly adjusted his breathing. The next morning, Zhang Xiaohua opened her eyes and released her divine sense. Immediately, her face showed surprise. He saw Shui Tian holding a towel, a basin, and a small kettle on the ground beside him. He stood respectfully in front of his door. On the opposite side of Shui Tian, Xiao Huaji's face was full of vigilance. She was also holding the snow-white towel in her hand and was staring at Shui Tian like a tiger watching its prey. What are you doing? Zhang Xiaohua removed the restriction on the hut and walked out. Hearing Zhang Xiaohua's deliberate footsteps, Shui Tian's spirit was lifted and his face became even more respectful. Ji Xiaohua's face also became anxious. She stretched out her leg and was about to rush over to open the door, but Shui Tian was faster than her. His figure swayed slightly, and he arrived in front of the door. He gently pushed the door open and called out, Master, good morning. However, before he could finish his sentence, 2 streaks of black light shot out of the door like arrows. Shui Tian was shocked and couldn't help but cry out. The basin in his hand almost fell to the ground. The 2 streaks of black light were Little Martin and Little Dog. The 2 little things floated in the air and stared unblinkingly at Shui Tian with their small black eyes. Xiao Huaji's face flashed with joy. She wanted to cover her mouth with her hand, but halfway through, she saw Zhang Xiaohua's smiling eyes. Good morning, Master. Xiao Huaji put down the snow-white towel on the ground and said respectfully, When I woke up, I suddenly saw a second martial uncle bringing this child over. I don't know what he was doing, but he just stood there. No matter how I asked, he didn't say anything. Master, I don't know what the rules of Beta School are, but in Misty School, I have been standing in front of Master's door in the morning since I was young to serve Master T. So, last night, I earnestly asked sect leader Zhang, second martial uncle, to bring me over to serve Master. Zhang Xiaohua came to a sudden realization and nodded his head subconsciously. Famous sects are indeed different. The rules are extraordinarily strict. Therefore, she smiled at Xiao Huaji, Little Black, and Little Yellow. She said, This is my new disciple, Shui Tian. He is also a person with a hard life. You two should get to know each other. Yes, Master. When Xiao Huaji heard that Shui Tian was a person with a hard life, she felt regret. She turned around and said, Junior Tian, who had just been frightened, was still looking at the 2 little things flying in the air. Her heart was beating wildly. When she heard Ji Xiaohua call her junior brother, she immediately became unhappy. She pouted and asked, Master, didn't you say yesterday that this disciple has been practicing my Big Dipper sex fist technique for a long time? This disciple has also observed that this brother has never practiced martial arts before. How can this disciple call him senior brother? As he said that, he looked at the 2 little things that had already flown away and felt relieved. He put the basin on the ground and turned around to take the kettle. He poured hot water and said with a smile, Master, please wash your face. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and walked over. She casually washed her face. At the same time, Xiao Huaji and Shui Tian handed over towels. Looking at the 2 towels, the two little hands and the two expectant faces, Zhang Xiaohua felt warm in her heart. She took one towel with each hand and wiped her face with one towel. Then, she handed the towels to the two of them. Xiaohua Ji and Shui Tiantian's faces were filled with joy and disappointment. They looked at each other and lightly snorted from their noses. Zhang Xiaohua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Then, her face turned cold, and she said in a low voice, "Both of you, come here." "Yes, master." The two of them felt Zhang Xiaohua's face and quickly followed. Standing in the small courtyard and looking at the rising sun, Zhang Xiaohua pointed and asked, "Wait and see. What do you think?" The two of them were stunned. After looking for a long time, they turned their heads back. "You first." Zhang Xiaohua pointed at Xiaohua Ji and said, "Yes, master." Xiaohua Ji said respectfully, "It looks like an egg yolk. It's probably delicious." Uffed. Shui Tiantian immediately laughed, but after laughing a few times, she immediately covered her mouth and looked at Zhang Xiaohua's straight face. Zhang Xiaohua held back her laughter with great difficulty. With a straight face, she said to Shui Tiantian, "What about you?" "Master, a year's plan is in the spring, and a day's plan is in the morning. The morning sun has just risen, and it is the time when life is full of vitality. We martial artists should cherish time like gold and dance when we hear the chicken." Then she asked again, "Master, is this disciple right?" Zhang Xiaohua was depressed. The disciples of this big sect were indeed different. They said things in a different way. Compared to her, this village disciple, Xiaohua Ji, she couldn't compare. And Tian is absolutely right. Zhang Xiaohua nodded calmly. Looking at Xiaohua Ji, who was a little shy, she said, "Xiaohua is not wrong. It's just because you're hungry that you think so much." "Yes, master." Xiaohua Ji's face softened. Zhang Xiaohua patted their shoulders again and hugged them in her arms. Facing the morning sun, she said, "Master is not much older than you, and I'm not as knowledgeable as Zhang Changyue. It's just that, look, the rising sun is the best and most beautiful time of the day. Our Beidou school has just been built, and like the rising sun, it's full of vitality. And you are also the rising sun of our Beidou school. Only with your joint efforts can we have a bright future. If you just entered our Beidou school and have a grudge against each other and hate each other, how can our Beidou school be famous in Jianghu?" When the two heard this, they couldn't help but feel ashamed. They were just children with a competitive nature. They only wanted to fight for favor in front of their master. How could they think so much? "Master, we were wrong." Xiaohua Ji and Shui Tiantian both said in a low voice. "All right, there's a saying in the olden days. Knowing one's mistakes is the greatest virtue. Since you don't have any relatives, you will be brothers in the future. You must love and care for each other." "Yes, master." This disciple will call Tian senior brother. He knows martial arts. Xiaohua Ji immediately said, "Xiaohua Ji is older than me, so I will call him senior brother." Shui Tian also declined. Hee. Zhang Xiaohua laughed and said, "Xiaohua Ji is already kowtowed and entered our Beidou school. He can't run away from the title of senior brother. Although Tiantian's martial arts is strong, he can only be ranked behind him." "Yes, master." Shui Tianan nodded and bowed. "Greetings to senior brother." "Don't." When Xiaohua Ji heard this, a strange expression appeared on her face. She hurriedly waved her hands and said, "Junior brother Tian, although I am a senior brother, I am not senior brother. Senior brother is someone else." "Then, where's senior brother?" "This little brother will pay his respects in a while," Shui Tian respectfully said. At this time, the sky had already brightened and the small courtyard gradually became lively. However, Zhang Byron was still a child, so how could he wake up so early? Xiaohua Ji laughed and said, "Don't be anxious, don't be anxious. When senior brother wakes up, I will bring him to play. It won't be too late for you to pay your respects then. And this little brother will listen to senior brother." Shui Tian did not seem to understand the meaning behind her words. Zhang Xiaohua Ji could already guess Shui Tiantian's expression when he saw Zhang Byron. However, she did not know how he would greet Zhang Byron. Perhaps there was a precedent in the Misty School. Also, you have 3 martial ants who can be considered as my junior sisters. In a while, let Xiaohua bring them to pay their respects. Your 3 martial ants have a good relationship with each other, so you must learn from them. Yes, master. The 2 of them bowed and replied. All right, master is going to practice the Big Dipper mystical fist. The 2 of you can also learn from the side. Tian already has the foundation. Later on, follow the fist moves from the manual and teach them to your second senior brother. Yes, master. Xiaohua Ji and Shui Tian were overjoyed, especially Ji Xiaohua Ji. Although she had already entered beta school, Zhang Xiaohua had not taught her anything yet. This could be considered her first lesson. After breakfast, Oyin came over. Shui Tian also paid his respects to his 3 martial ants. At this time, Zhang Byron had also woken up from his sleep. Under Zhang Byron's complete disregard, Shui Tian helplessly paid his respects to his senior brother. Looking at Nye Qinyu, Zhang Pinger, and Oyin, as well as Zhang Byron, Ji Xiaohua Ji, and Shui Tian, Zhang Xiaohua Ji was very satisfied. As long as Chu Jing was brought over by the Misty School's disciples, the disciples of Beidu School would be complete. However, when she thought of Chu Jing, Zhang Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat for no reason. Please vote monthly. Please vote recommendation. Please bookmark. Please tip. Thank you. Chapter 1134. Master Zhang San's blood turned into a red bead the size of a fist and spun around in the air. You open her mouth, and the blood bead was sucked into her mouth. Master Zhang San turned into a dried corpse and fell to the ground. Then you looked at the people from the Misty School. How dare you? Zhang Xiaohua was shocked and did not dare to delay any longer. He reached out his hand, and the lotus throne appeared in the air. He pointed his finger, and the lotus throne emitted a rainbow light that covered Zhang Xiaohu, Peacock, and Chin. Ha! You covered her mouth and laughed. Little husband, don't be afraid. Zhang Xiaohu is your second brother. Why would I hurt him? Besides, their cultivation is far from enough. Their blood can only be used to refine the demon flag. There are many people like that in the martial arts world. I have no reason to make you unhappy. Then, she waved her sleeve, and 2 rays of red light shot out towards Nun Jing, Yi, and Nun Shuqing. Stop it! Zhang Xiaohua was furious. The dream-chasing sword flew out again and turned into 64 rays of light that shot towards you. Ayo, little husband, you are so cruel. How dare you attack me? You wrong me for loving you so much. You smiled and did not retract the red light. It was as if the rays of light could not hurt her at all. Sure enough, when the 64 rays of light hit Ya's body, the demon flag's clothes shook slightly, and countless black gas blocked the rays of light. Little husband, do you know why I've been talking to you so patiently? Why I've been answering your questions? You smiled brightly. Rushi, you attacked me the moment you came up. I am tired of dealing with you. Not only you, but you see, I have been attacking the monks of the Dalan Temple since the beginning. Why did I not attack the people of the incense cult? That's because the monks of the Dalan Temple are pigs. No matter how high their cultivation is, they're no match for me. As for you, Ming Xin's disciple, I still have to think about it. I can only wait until the first layer of the demonic flag is successfully refined before I can make a move. Then, a bitter expression appeared on her face. This devilish flag is far too difficult to refine. There was so much blood at the foot of Yao Mountain, as well as the quintessence blood of so many experts from the Tao of Immortals, but I've only just reached the first level. Only after reaching the first level can I dare to stand tall and face you directly. Do you know how nervous I was in front of you just now? You, Zhang Xiaohua, finally understood. She gritted her teeth. But don't be afraid, my husband. I'm sincere to you and your family. In the future, this world will belong to the 2 of us. Let's build your Beidu school into a first-class school. Let the Tenryu sect, the Incense sect, and the Misty school become its puppets. While he was talking to Zhang Xiaohua, the other 2 red lights had already killed the heavily injured Nun Shuqing and Nun Jingyi. Their quintessence blood had also been sucked out by Ye. Zhang Xiaohua looked on, not knowing what to do. At this moment, Ye's expression suddenly changed. She frowned and closed her eyes. Her body fell from the sky. When she regained her balance, she opened her eyes. Her eyes were clear and filled with pain. She looked at Zhang Xiaohua and said, "Xiaohua, I'm Meng." Meng. Zhang Xiaohua hesitated and looked at the familiar eyes. "I have to go. Xiaohua." Ye's consciousness is getting stronger and stronger. I'm destined to be devoured by her. The more I'm devoured by Ye, the more I know." Meng cried, I really love you." Zhang Xiaohua was very surprised. "I know you love me." "Xiaohua, you don't understand," Meng said in a panic. Meng's eyes turned slightly red, but she gritted her teeth, and the redness gradually faded. Meng said anxiously, "Xiaohua, I don't have much time. You have to hear that what you said was true, but what she said to you was all lies. She didn't kill you because she wanted to keep you captive. When your cultivation is high, she will absorb your quintessence blood. Furthermore, this demonic flag of hers needs to be refined 9 times. Not only does she want to use this demonic flag to raise her cultivation, she also wants to use it to break open space and return to the ruins. It took so many people's blood and lives to refine 1 layer of the demon flag. Every time the demon flag was refined, it would take 9 times more blood essence than the previous layer. Flowery, you have to calculate how many people's blood essence would be needed to refine this demon flag. Even if you kill the entire Jianghu and the entire human world, it still won't be enough. Tisk, Zhang Xiaohua gasped. If that was the case, the entire human world would become hell. Quick, little blossom, while I'm still stopping you, you kill me quickly. As Meng spoke, she wanted to take down the demonic flag, but no matter how hard she tried, the demonic flag didn't move at all. Meng was about to cry. She shouted, "Xiaohua, use the flying sword, use chasing dream. Let chasing dream become killing dream." Zhang Xiaohua also cried. Chasing dream couldn't move forward even after several attempts. "Meng, how can I bear to let you go? How can I kill you with my own hands? Unless there's no other way?" Zhang Xiaohua's voice was hoarse. Meng smiled bitterly when she saw that chasing dream didn't move forward. She shook her head and said, "Xiaohua, you are wrong. You don't love me at all." Zhang Xiaohua also shook her head. "Meng, what nonsense are you talking about? How can I not love you? It's true. It's not your heart that loves me, and it's not my heart that loves you. It's the heart-binding curse that you used that's causing trouble. You used the heart-binding curse to bind our hearts together." Meng smiled bitterly and cried, "Heart-binding curse?" Zhang Xiaohua was dazed and didn't know how to answer. "Xiaohua, do you think we only met once outside Poyang town and it'll be engraved in our hearts forever? Can you think about it every day and night? Can you not eat or drink?" Meng said while crying. "Why not? Meng, I've always treated you like this. Sometimes when I think of you, my heart will ache and I'll be happy." Zhang Xiaohua shook her head. Meng's eyes lit up and she said happily, I'm the same." But then she shook her head and said, But we're trapped by Ye's heart-binding curse. This is all Ye's doing." Seeing that Zhang Xiaohua still didn't understand, Meng wiped her tears and said, "In fact, when you came here, she first established the Tenryu sect. She called herself Sakura and trained a few heavenly kings. In order to increase her power, you established the Dalan Temple. She combined the kung fu of the devil world with some exercises she got from the Buddhism sect and formed the Dalan Temple. On the surface, the exercises of the Dalan Temple are Buddhism sect's exercises, but the foundation is the exercises of the devil cult. All the monks of the Dalan Temple have succeeded in practicing them. After they passed away, their relics became elixirs for Ye to increase her power. Later, when you was fighting with Wan Wuxin, Yu Mingxin, and Yang Haoye for an extremely rare thing, she was seriously injured by the 3 of them. When you hid in the Guyuan Tower of the Dalan Temple to heal, she accidentally found a kind of heart sutra of the Buddhism sect. Xiaohua, You also know that the monks of the Dalan Temple abstain from sex. The reason why they abstain from sex is because of this Heart Sutra. This Heart Sutra was unintentionally copied from the Buddhism sect. You comprehended this Heart Sutra and combined it with some kind of secret method of the devil cult. You found a way to live forever. Live forever. Zhang Xiaohua almost cried out. Yes, live forever. Meng looked at Zhang Xiaohua and said, "Didn't you see me? How many years have I lived?" Zhang Xiaohua nodded blankly. Meng sighed and continued. Ya's method was to find a man and, according to the Heart Sutra, cast the Heart Sutra in the hearts of Ya and this man. Hence, you fell in love with this man, fell in love with him, and got married. This man was the second generation Sakura apart from Ya. Then, Ya and Sakura gave birth to a daughter, which was the first generation Saintess. This Saintess was an independent person, but because Ya and Sakura had the Heart Sutra, this Saintess had Ya's consciousness seed in her consciousness. When the Saintess was 6 years old, Ya, according to the secret method, quietly died. Once Ya died, her seed in the Saintess consciousness began to germinate. At that time, the Saintess consciousness began to become chaotic. After a few months or years, Ya's consciousness grew up and swallowed the Saintess consciousness. This Saintess then became Ya. At this time, Ya wasn't much different from an ordinary person. She should spend most of her time in the Tenryu sect. Then, you would go to the Guei Yuan Tower of the Dalan Temple and swallow the relics in the Guei Yuan Tower to increase her power. When Ya's power had reached a certain age, you would go to the pugilistic world to find another man and cast the Heart Sutra again to let herself and another man fall in love with each other. Like this, the Saintess of the Tenryu sect will always be Ya. Do you understand? Xiaohua, this is what the Tenryu sect passed down. The child of Sakura and the Saintess must be a girl. First there was the Saintess, then there was Sakura, then there was Sakura, then there were the 8 division heavenly kings. This was how they came to be. Meng looked at Zhang Xiaohua with tears in her eyes again and said while crying, "And I am this generation's Saintess, which is also the reincarnated Ya." Xiaohua, you are the man that you will choose from the pugilistic world in this life. You are destined to fall in love with Ya and help each other in difficult times. You are destined to be this generation's Sakura, your daughter, the next generation's Saintess, and also the next generation's. Ya's reincarnation. This matter should have been done after you became an adult, but I don't know why she actually did it when she met you at the ferry. Perhaps it's because you look very similar to that immortal Xiaohua, and you was extremely afraid of this immortal Xiaohua. So, when she met you at the ferry, she felt that you were her biggest threat at the first moment. So she cast her most powerful Heart Sutra on you. Meng seemed to be recalling something and said, "This is also the only reason why you fell in love with me." Zhang Xiaohua's face turned ashen as she listened. Her eyes were at a loss, and she didn't know how to answer. She had never thought that her painstakingly engraved love for Meng was just her method of toying with the human world, her method of immortality. So, Xiaohua, I don't have the qualifications to talk about love with you. Our love is really a kind of absurdity, Meng cried with tears in her eyes. However, according to Ya's memory, it seems she found another method from the ring you gave her. Perhaps in the future, your daughter won't have this kind of tragedy again. But it definitely won't. Yeah, she wants to swallow you. Speaking up to here, Meng's eyes turned blood red, and her face turned cold. Her tone changed again. What kind of storm does a little consciousness want to cause? I don't know how many little things like this I've swallowed. She then looked at Zhang Xiaohua and said coldly, "Since you already know, I won't say anything more. Although I've found a way to achieve immortality without reincarnation, I can't guarantee that this method will be completely useful. So, as the man of this generation who was implanted with the heart-binding curse with me, you have to stay by my side for the rest of your life. Unless I have no other choice, I won't abandon you." Zhang Xiaohua's eyes were already filled with determination. She stared at Ya and said coldly, "Your method is the demon flag?" Haha, yes, it's the demon flag. It's a method to refine the blood of 10,000 spirits. If it succeeds, not to mention me, even you, I can guarantee you immortality." Zhang Xiaohua shook her head slightly. "This kind of immortality, it's better not to have it." "Ha ha ha. This kind of immortality, it's better not to have it. What a big tone." You laughed maniacally. "I've been struggling at death's door since tens of thousands of years ago. I've reared the Dalan Temple in captivity, released the techniques of the demon realm, and searched for the Saintess and Sakura. Isn't everything for the sake of immortality? How long have you lived? How do you know the wonders of immortality?" "Humph, humph," as the ancient people said, "if you can understand the true meaning of life, if two people truly love each other, even if you only live for a day, it's enough. If you don't understand why you live, don't know what love is, and only treat love as a tool to prolong your feeble existence, then, even if you've lived for tens of thousands of years, what's the use of living until you're as old as heaven and earth?" "Ha ha ha ha." You laugh maniacally again. "You're just a little human, but you're just my food and you actually want to talk about love with me? What is love? I don't need to know, and I don't want to know. You're just despicable creatures, and your emotions are even more despicable. And the love you speak of is fake. It doesn't even exist. It's just one of my techniques. You really think it's real? I saw that little thing tossing and turning over there. It's really stubborn. It actually doesn't want to be devoured by me." Then he pointed at Peacock, Zhang Xiaohu, and the rest, and said, "I know, you Ming Xin from the incense cult, and Yang Haoya from the Misty School. They should have been able to cultivate successfully, but they were delayed by this so-called love, and both of their foundations were damaged. One of them was looking for self-pity at the Sorrowless Lake, while the other came to the Dalan Temple to find me, the Sakura of the demon realm, to find a way to cut off their feelings. Ha! What happened to them in the end? One was suppressed by me under the Frowning Tower, never to be reincarnated, while the other died on the Misty Peak, never to enter the 6 paths of reincarnation. But after all, they had loved before." Zhang Xiaohua was infuriated. She moved her divine sense, and a few rays of sword light pierced towards Ya, aiming at Ya's head, which was not covered by the demonic flag. "Ha! You're finally willing to do it." You laughed. "If you kill me, you'll never see your dream." The small sword was like lightning, piercing Ya's face, but just as the flying sword touched Ya's face, the demonic flag quietly extended upwards, covering Ya's entire face, blocking the small sword. Zhang Xiaohua did not expect to succeed like this. At the same time she used the flying sword, she reached out her hand, wanted to take out the Hao Tian mirror, but the Hao Tian mirror was connected to the other 9 instruments. Zhang Xiaohua was in a hurry. She could not take it out. Left with no choice, Zhang Xiaohua took out the Sangharama plate beside her. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua take out the Sangharama plate, Peacock gritted her teeth. She did not know what to feel. Although she had already guessed that Great Elder Jingang was killed by Zhang Xiaohua, she did not want to admit it. Zhang Xiaohua could not care less. She held the Sangharama plate in her hand, made a gesture with her right hand, and vital energy was emitted from her fingertips. Then she pointed at the plate, and from the Sangharama plate, a ball of light blue brilliance appeared, and a wave of turbulent sound was heard. Then Zhang Xiaohua gritted her teeth and pointed her finger. The brilliance was like a water column, directly covering Ya's head. "Ha ha," you laughed. "You're just a cultivator in the chi refining stage. What can you do? This little bit of congenital water is not even enough to wash my feet." Sure enough, you did not move at all. When the congenital water column, as heavy as a mountain, fell, he waved his sleeve, and a faint black gas was emitted from the demonic flag, turning into a faint black lotus, which was supported by the light blue brilliance. Although the water was turbulent, it could not smash down no matter what. Next, Zhang Xiaohua did not hesitate. He took out the dragon binding hoop and tossed it into the air. The dragon binding hoop grew in the wind, and flames appeared around it. It turned into a hoop that was about 10 feet wide and covered Ya's head. "These are just some toys, but they're just for me to play with." Ya had a faint smile on his face, and he did not activate the demonic flag. He only pointed his hand in the air, and a red light flashed, hitting the dragon binding hoop. With a Kong sound, the light on the dragon binding hoop was extinguished, and the flames were extinguished. With a pu sound, you fell from the air. Humph! Zhang Xiaohua snorted coldly and took out 2 purple phoenix hairpins, one in each hand, and sent all her true qi into the 2 purple phoenix hairpins. Kacha, kacha! 2 thunderous sounds came from the 2 purple phoenix hairpins, and in an instant, 2 bolts of lightning were emitted from each hairpin. These 2 bolts of lightning were different. The one in the left had a golden glow, and the one in the right had a white glow. When the 2 bolts of lightning flew out of the purple phoenix hairpins, they immediately absorbed the yuan qi of heaven and earth from the surrounding air and continuously expanded. When the 2 bolts of lightning flew closer, countless tiny bolts of lightning were formed between the 2 bolts of lightning, and when they flew to Ya's head, they had already formed a net of lightning that was sizzling. This purple phoenix hairpin is the token of love between Yu Ming Xian and Yang Haoya. How could this lord not have seen it before? If the 2 of them were to use it, perhaps this lord would be somewhat afraid. Although you've already tried your best, it's a pity that your cultivation is too weak. The purple phoenix hairpin's power is really like the light of a firefly. When you saw this, he didn't seem to be nervous at all. He only casually flicked his finger, and another red light struck the center of the net of lightning. Boom! Countless bolts of lightning were quickly annihilated by the red light, and in a breath's time, they were annihilated. There was still a small wisp of the red light, and it didn't stop there. It went straight for the purple phoenix hairpin in Zhang Xiaohua's hand. Zhang Xiaohua frowned, and immediately put away the purple phoenix hairpin. She then took out another item, and it was the small seal that she had obtained earlier. Zhang Xiaohua threw the small seal into the sky, and it immediately expanded and turned into a huge rock and directly smashed down on Ya's head. "Haha, little lover, I'm afraid you don't have anything good in your hands." Seeing Zhang Xiaohua throw out the small seal, Ya almost laughed out loud. He pointed his finger, and the seal immediately spun in the air and fell from the sky. However, Zhang Xiaohua really had a lot of things in her hands. Before the small seal fell, she took out another item from her bosom, and it was the so-called 7 Wonders tree. Hee, little lover, you really have a lot of treasures. Unfortunately, this 7 Wonders tree belongs to the Buddhist sect. Can you control it? You sneered. Bang! The crimson light hit the wonderful tree of 7 treasures. Zhang Xiaohua's hand trembled, and then his chest trembled. He didn't know how you did it. She couldn't control her body anymore, and the 7 Wonders tree in her hand fell in the direction of Zhang Xiaohu and the rest. Zhang Xiaohua's body was in midair, and the blood in her chest was boiling, and a mouthful of blood rushed up to her throat. When she landed beside the lotus throne, she could only calm her blood, and a small stream of blood still seeped out from the corner of her mouth. Xiaohua! Zhang Xiaohu saw Zhang Xiaohua vomiting blood, and immediately panicked and called out. As for Peacock and Chun Chun, when they saw that there were traces of golden blood on Zhang Xiaohua's body, they were shocked. "Ha, how is it?" You laughed wildly. "With the demon flag, even though I have less than 30% of my previous cultivation, but here, there is no one who can defeat me." As he spoke, a condensed divine sense was released from you, and it swept towards Zhang Xiaohua with extreme fierceness. This, Zhang Xiaohua was stunned. The divine sense was extremely dense and heavy. Her divine sense was similar to Ya's, but she was just an infant boy who didn't know how to walk. Zhang Xiaohua looked at the dreamlike face. No, it was a dream. She opened her eyes wide, gritted her teeth, and reached her hand into her chest again. Just now, she couldn't control the Hao Tian mirror, and it should be because of the 10 magical items in the pouch. But now, other than the Hao Tian mirror, Zhang Xiaohua only had a few pearls and a few gourds, and she didn't know how to use them. Thinking about it, Zhang Xiaohua took out the Hao Tian mirror. It seemed that the Hao Tian mirror was unwilling to appear, and in Zhang Xiaohua's hand, it was as heavy as 10,000 pounds. Kunlun mirror. When you saw the Hao Tian mirror, his eyeballs almost fell out, and he pointed at Zhang Xiaohua in disbelief. When did you see Xiaohua? Is he here too? As he spoke, his eyes didn't stop looking around. His divine sense also spread out in all directions. Zhang Xiaohua didn't give her time to think. Although he didn't master the first level of the Hao Tian mirror, and the Hao Tian mirror didn't listen to him, he still poured his true energy into the Hao Tian mirror as if it didn't cost money. After receiving his true energy, the Hao Tian mirror gradually emitted a faint brilliance, and the surface of the mirror gradually became blurry. You looked around and didn't see the so-called immortal Xiaohua, so she was relieved. Then, she looked at Zhang Xiaohua's method of pouring his true energy into the Hao Tian mirror and laughed. Little husband, I think you haven't seen Xiaohua, and your mirror isn't the Kunlun mirror. Xiaohua's Kunlun mirror isn't something that a chi-refining kid like you can control. But then, she tilted her head and said, But why do you look so similar to Xiaohua? Also, you haven't seen Xiaohua, but you can actually disguise yourself as him? It's really strange. But if this mirror is really the Kunlun mirror, then can't I escape into the void at will? While they were talking, the Kunlun mirror shone brightly, as if something was about to rush out, but he didn't seem to panic, and he only scanned Zhang Xiaohua's surroundings with his divine sense, and laughed again. Don't use your strength, little husband. If this isn't the Kunlun mirror, even if you can use it, you can't do anything to me. But if it is the Kunlun mirror, it is one of the 10 heaven-opening treasures, which can only be used by immortals. You are just a mortal. How can you control it? Why don't you leave a little bit of your true chi, and we can sit down and have a good chat? Before he finished speaking, the Hao Ian mirror dimmed again, and Zhang Xiaohua felt a huge force coming from the Hao Ian mirror, which hit her dantian. An incomparable discomfort gushed out from her body, and with a puff, she spat out a mouthful of essence blood, which fell on the Hao Ian mirror. With a whoosh, the Hao Ian mirror shone brightly, and a huge suction force came from the Hao Ian mirror, which swept away all the true chi in Zhang Xiaohua's body like a whale swallowing water. With a buzz, the Hao Ian mirror trembled slightly, and suddenly, a misty light shot towards you. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua spit out a mouthful of blood on the Hao Ian mirror, you felt something was wrong. As soon as the light came out, he immediately flashed, and several black phantoms appeared in front of Zhang Xiaohua. The light of the Hao Ian mirror hit the phantoms, and all the phantoms were shattered into pieces, revealing you in midair. Kunlun mirror, is this really the Kunlun mirror? You still didn't believe it, but his body didn't slow down. The light of the Hao Ian mirror was like a maggot in a tarsal bone, and wherever you flew, the light would follow. So what if it's the Kunlun mirror? After flying for a while, Ya's face turned cold, and he landed on the ground. With a wave of his hand, the demonic flag was pulled out from his body, and he threw it in midair, which was in front of the light. With a puff, the light hit the demonic flag, and the black gas on the demonic flag surged, and it instantly disappeared like a snowflake that was doused with hot water. You looked at the demonic flag with great heartache, and the black gas on it gradually dimmed. Fortunately, the light of the Hao Ian mirror also gradually dissipated. When the light of the Hao Ian mirror completely dissipated, you let out a long breath and landed in front of Zhang Xiaohua. He looked at Zhang Xiaohua from head to toe, and the expression in his eyes was extremely strange. Who are you? How did Xiaohua's Kunlun mirror fall into your hands? Zhang Xiaohua looked at you, and she had already put the Hao Ian mirror into her purse. She sneered and said, Of course I am me, and I don't know who Xiaohua is. This mirror is called the Hao Ian mirror, and not the Kunlun mirror that you mentioned. It really is the Kunlun mirror. Ya's face was filled with excitement, but his face was also extremely puzzled. The Kunlun mirror is an honorific name for the Hao Ian mirror, and this mirror is the Hao Ian mirror. As he spoke, his face turned cold again. I don't care how you know Xiaohua. You better quickly hand over the Kunlun mirror. An unparalleled divine sense attacked Zhang Xiaohua. But just when the divine sense touched Zhang Xiaohua, the divine sense suddenly stopped and quickly retracted. The red color in Ye's eyes gradually dimmed, and Meng actually came out again. Xiaohua, I'm afraid that I can only see you for the last time. I have something that I always wanted to tell you. If I don't say it, I won't be able to die in peace. Although Meng didn't have any cultivation, under the support of the devil flag, she also floated in the air. At this moment, how could Zhang Xiaohua still care whether she was Meng or Ye? She reluctantly used the last of her true energy to fly to Meng's side. Xiaohua, don't despise me. As Meng spoke, she stretched out her hand and grabbed Zhang Xiaohua's hand. Although my consciousness has the seed of Ye, my heart and my body love you. I know. Zhang Xiaohua nodded with tears in her eyes. Actually, Xiaohua, I feel that I'm quite lucky. You didn't know how many Sanus's consciousnesses before, and each of them was only a few years old. Those Sanuses had never tasted the taste of love, and I'm very grateful to God for arranging for me to meet you in my inevitable ending, and to have a mutual love with you. Although this love is just the effect of the heart-binding curse, but Xiaohua is the real love between us. Love is love. No matter how it appears, if it exists, then it exists. Even Ye, she can't deny it. Zhang Xiaohua opened her mouth, wanting to say something, but she couldn't say anything. Meng held his hand again and said, I've always wanted to help you in times of need, but unfortunately, I'm afraid our promise won't come true. However, perhaps it's more suitable for us to forget each other in the pugilistic world. Since it's better to forget each other in the pugilistic world than to help each other in times of need, then Xiaohua, let's forget each other in the pugilistic world. Suddenly, Zhang Xiaohua's hand tightened, and Meng's eyes began to turn red again. Quick, Xiaohua, there's no time. I feel that I'm getting weaker and weaker. If you don't do it while I'm still alive, you'll never have the chance to do it again. If you can't live, how can we forget each other in the pugilistic world? If you can't kill Ye, then who in the world can stop her? I'm afraid everyone in the world will be killed by her as a sacrifice to the flag. Meng's eyes gradually turned red, and Meng's face was filled with reluctance and desperation. Zhang Xiaohua gritted her teeth, and Chasing Dream turned into countless sword lights, stabbing towards Meng's throat. However, just as the flying sword was about to pierce Meng's throat, the demonic flag extended upwards, blocking the flying sword, and the flying sword couldn't pierce any further. Zhang Xiaohua was shocked, and her divine sense moved again, attacking Meng's head. However, the demonic flag covered the entire head like before, and the flying sword couldn't enter. Ha! You finally appeared and grabbed Zhang Xiaohua's hand. What an affectionate husband! But what kind of intimate method is this? The flying sword was useless, and it flew towards Zhang Xiaohua again. Zhang Xiaohua saw Chasing Dream, and her eyes lit up. She reached out with her left hand and grabbed it. Then, with the nameless sword skill, she stabbed towards Ye's throat. The strange flow of energy from her left arm flowed out from a mysterious place, and it flowed into Chasing Dream along her arm. With such a small sword, how can it hurt me? It was extremely disdainful, and like swatting a fly, he swatted the small sword away from his throat. Zhang Xiaohua didn't stop there, and she stabbed towards Ye's heart. Little sweetheart, don't tell me. You want to get physical now? Ye smiled and puffed out her towering chest. However, before she could say another word, Chasing Dream had already stabbed Ye's chest. The demonic flag's black fog churned, and a red light flashed. But, with a poochie sound, the demonic flag that the flying sword couldn't pierce was pierced through by Chasing Dream. Just as he was still smiling, Chasing Dream stabbed in her heart, and the flow of energy flowed into her heart. Ye's face was pale, and she said in disbelief, What kind of magic weapon is this? Zhang Xiaohua didn't dare to answer. Chasing Dream in his hand had pierced an extremely hard spot. As the energy flowed in, That extremely hard spot immediately exploded, releasing an extremely strong force, and quickly hit Chasing Dream. Chasing Dream, or should it be called Chasing Dream now, instantly turned into powder, and purplish-red blood flowed out from Ya's heart and immediately flowed onto the demonic flag. The demonic flag absorbed Ya's blood, and a red light flashed again. Yu was shocked, and she hurriedly used her heart technique, wanting to heal the wound in her heart. Unfortunately, that mysterious flow of energy had already destroyed Ya's heart. No matter what method you used, the blood in her heart continued to flow out, and her heart was gradually destroyed along with the flow of energy. You pointed at Zhang Xiaohua and wanted to use her magic power to kill her, but it was too late. In just a moment, the demonic flag gradually fell off from Ya's body, revealing Ya in purple robes. Xiaohua, you finally succeeded. The red light in Ya's eyes receded, and the dream came out again. She smiled and said, I will never see you again in the future, but you finally hit Ya's vital point. You no longer cares about devouring me. She is looking for a way to save herself. After that, the dream looked at the snowflakes that were still fluttering in the sky and the red clouds in the sky and said sadly, This is leaving? Am I going to leave this world just like this? But to be able to accompany the man in my heart for so long, I'm already satisfied. Xiaohua, do you think there's really immortality in this world? Yeah. She's so heartless. What is the meaning of living for so long? If there is some elixir of immortality, I won't use it myself. If you want to use it, let's use it together. Zhang Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat. He flew forward and held Meng in his arms. He took out the longevity pill from his money bag and held it in front of Meng's eyes. He said sadly, Perhaps this is what you call the elixir of immortality. The dream felt strange and reached out to take it, opened the bottle, and looked at the pill inside. But then a strange smile appeared on her face, and she shook her head slightly. I know this thing. From Ya's memory, this seems to be an extremely precious beauty pill in the cultivation world. After taking it, you can keep your face at that time for the rest of your life. Ha ha. The dream's eyes turned red again, and you said, This kind of pill is a woman's favorite. I can still get it when I'm about to die. Then, let me take it. After that, you was about to put the beauty pill in her hand into her mouth, but just as her hand was about to reach her mouth, she stretched it out again and handed it to Zhang Xiaohua's mouth. The dream said, Xiaohua, you can eat it. I hope you can keep your current appearance and not change even after 100 years. Wait for my next life. I will come and find you again. The dream's eyes just stared at Zhang Xiaohua's face, as if she wanted to imprint his appearance deeply in her heart, and even reincarnation could not erase it. Zhang Xiaohua's nose was filled with tears, and he sniffed the sweet fragrance between the dream's fingers. He put the beauty pill in his mouth, and it melted as soon as it entered his mouth, and turned into a medicinal power that went into his stomach. By the way, Xiaohua, Ye has destroyed the sheepskin scroll in the dense forest just now, but I know that she did not destroy the previous one. She hid it in. The dream seemed to think of something again, and whispered a few words in Zhang Xiaohua's ear. At this time, Zhang Xiaohua was very sad. So how could he care about this? Although the blood in the dream's chest was flowing slowly, it was still flowing. Zhang Xiaohua knew that when the blood stopped flowing, it would be the time for the dream to leave, and he would never be able to see the person he loved again. Their fingers were interlocked, and their eyes were looking at each other. For a long time, they did not speak. Suddenly, the dream's face was full of shock, and he pushed Zhang Xiaohua and said, Xiaohua, quickly go. Ye is staking everything to die with you. Then the dream looked deeply at Zhang Xiaohua for the last time, and used his left hand to pull Zhang Xiaohua's head over, and deeply kissed Zhang Xiaohua's lips, and said with a smile, I guessed the process, but I did not guess the ending. This process will forever be engraved in my heart. Xiaohua, wait in the next life. I will love you again. As she spoke, she waved her hand and tightly grasped the demonic flag before closing her eyes. Meng's expression started to change. First, it was pain. Then it frowned. After that, it started to emit lights of various colors. In the end, Meng's figure suddenly flew up into the sky. With a bang, she exploded and the demonic flag was blasted away. "Dream!" Zhang Xiaohua shouted and flew into the air and reached out to grab the demon flag. But besides the disappearing bloodstain on the flag, there was only the ring Zhang Xiaohua gave Dream. At that moment, Zhang Xiaohua suddenly felt a popping sound in his heart. It was as if a lock had been unlocked, and the key to the lock was in the air in front of him. Zhang Xiaohua froze for a moment, then seemed to understand. He opened his left hand and released all of the divine sense in his Niwen palace into his delirium dharma eye. When the silver-white eyes opened, Zhang Xiaohua could clearly see that Meng was floating not far from him. Next to Meng was Ye, who looked exactly like Meng, but was pitch black, had horns on her head, and had a pair of wings on her back. Zhang Xiaohua didn't have time to think and chased after Meng. However, just as he was about to catch up, a pitch-black crack opened beside Meng Ye, and the two of them were about to enter the crack. "Dream!" Zhang Xiaohua shouted and reached out his right hand to grab Dream's hand. Dream seemed to sense it and turned to look at Zhang Xiaohua. It was a pair of large eyes, thick eyebrows, a dimple, and a beauty mark. The end of the book, November 24th, 2011, 22:53. Chapter 1135. At this moment, Zhang Xiaohua raised her eyebrows again. She seemed to look outside and instructed, "Xiaohua Ji, there's an announcement outside saying that a distinguished guest has come to visit. Go and welcome the guest on behalf of Master." Xiaohua Ji was stunned. She put down the things in her hands and nodded. "Yes, disciple will go out now." Shui Tiantian, on the other hand, stared at Zhang Xiaohua with wide eyes filled with disbelief. He then turned his head to look at Ji Xiaohua's back. He was extremely envious and wanted to follow him to take a look. Although O Yin and the others were surprised, they didn't show it on their faces. They only tidied up the things in the room slightly and glanced at the door from time to time. Not long after, Xiaohua Ji walked in with a few people. They were Zhang Xiaohua, Hu Yuni, Li Jian, Du Feng, and Ding Chao. Du Feng and Ding Chao were holding various gifts in their hands. Their faces were also filled with surprise and disbelief. Hu Yuni and the others entered the room. They only took a glance before walking to Zhang Xiaohua. They bowed and said respectfully, "Greetings, Immortal Elder. I've received Immortal Elder's kindness and have specially come to thank you today." As he spoke, he waved his hand. Du Feng and Ding Chao presented their gifts. Hu Yuni continued, "I've asked gang leader Zhang this morning. I know that Immortal Elder has a noble character and doesn't like worldly things. It's difficult for me to find immortal things in a short time, so I've taken out the calligraphy and paintings that I've collected for decades. I hope Immortal Elder doesn't dislike them. This is also a small token of my appreciation." Zhang Xiaohua was overjoyed when she heard this. She waved her hand and said, "Elder who is too polite. I have a deep relationship with your sect. I'm sure you've heard the reason for my second brother. Helping Elder who is just a matter of convenience. Elder whose politeness makes it seem like I have ulterior motives. No, it's just a small token of my appreciation. It's really not enough to show my respect. I hope Immortal Elder can give me some face and accept it." Hu Yuni said in panic. "Xiaohua, these are all Elder who's own things. He has been looking for me since a long time ago. He is very sincere. You should just accept them." Zhang Xiaohu knew that Zhang Xiaohua liked gold and silver and might not understand the value of these paintings, so he immediately reminded her. "This." Zhang Xiaohua listened and nodded. "Since it is Elder whose kind intention, then I will accept it. I can't let Elder whose face fall to the ground." "Thank you, Senior Immortal," Hu Yuni said with a smile. "Oyen, take these things." Zhang Xiaohua waved her hand and said to Oyen, "Yes, head senior brother." Oyen answered in a low voice and stepped forward to take the calligraphy and painting from Du Feng and Ding Chao's hands. When Hu Yuni and the others saw Oyen in the room, they thought that she was just sitting there idly. Hearing her address Zhang Xiaohua as senior martial brother sect leader, they couldn't help but feel surprised. Hu Yuni couldn't help but ask, Yinzi? Oyin took the calligraphy and painting first. She looked at Hu Yuni and Li Jian with a face full of smiles and said, Big brother, second brother, thanks to Senior Immortal for accepting me as a disciple of Beidou School a few days ago. Although I am a disciple of an immortal, I still call him Senior Martial Brother. When Hu Yuni and Li Jian heard this, they were both surprised and pleasantly surprised. Oyin was O Peng's younger sister and the only blood relative he had left in the world. Hu Yuni and Li Jian naturally had to take care of O Yin carefully so that they wouldn't let down the dead O Peng. Now that they heard that Oyin, who couldn't practice martial arts, was actually a disciple of an immortal who would dare to bully Oyin in the future, how could they not be happy? Hu Yuni bowed again and said, Thank you for your kindness, Senior Immortal. I thank you on behalf of my dead fourth brother. Zhang Xiaohua said with a smile. Elder Hu, you should sit down first. You repeatedly bowed and thanked me as soon as you entered the room. I really feel uncomfortable. Elder Hu, Elder Li, Vice Hall Master Du, and Vice Hall Master Ding, please take a seat. Zhang Xiaohu stood at the side and greeted. Xiaohua had already brought some chairs. At this time, Hu Yuni and Li Jian were already seated. Only Ding Chao and Du Feng walked to Zhang Xiaohua and bowed. We didn't know that it was Senior Immortal who helped us on Shixin Peak, so we have always misunderstood Senior Immortal. Moreover, we have offended you on Shixin Peak. Please forgive us. Zhang Xiaohua laughed and said, I'll say the same thing again. I'm fated to meet Ethereal Sect. Since I've arrived at Shixin Peak and saw that you are the elites of Ethereal Sect, I've been delighted for a long time. Since I can help you, I'll naturally help you without thinking too much. I only hope that you will be loyal to Misty School in the future and make Misty School more famous than before. Ding Chao and Du Feng's faces turned serious, and they said in unison, Senior Immortal's kindness is like giving us a new life. Although we are slow-witted, we also know that in the future, we will follow Sect Leader Zhang's lead and carry forward Misty School's orthodoxy. Good. Zhang Xiaohua clapped her hands and said, In this way, I did not waste my efforts. Haha, Deputy Hall Leaders Ding and Du are the outstanding young disciples of Misty School. Your future is limitless. Please sit down. That's right. Elder Hu, how are your injuries? Zhang Xiaohua asked with a smile. Thank you, Senior Immortal, for bestowing the medicine. The poison in my body has already been removed yesterday. This morning, I asked the medicine hall's elder to take a look, and there was nothing left. As for the injuries in my meridians, under the effect of Senior Immortal's medicinal pill, I have already healed 30% in one night. If nothing unexpected happens, I should be able to fully recover in 2 days. Hu Yuni said, unable to conceal the joy in his voice. That's just right. I was afraid that this medicinal pill was wrong. Zhang Xiaohua nodded and said, although the injuries in Elder whose meridians are serious, it's mainly because you overwork yourself these past few years and didn't properly recuperate. As for I's medicinal pill, it's actually somewhat wasteful. Hu Yuni stared blankly and asked curiously, What do you mean, Senior Immortal? Zhang Xiaohua said mysteriously, if Elder whose meridians heal and then refine the residual medicinal power with his internal strength, something surprising will happen. Senior Immortal's meaning is, Hu Yuni had also taken the qi-generating pill, so how could he not understand? He immediately thought of saluting. Zhang Xiaohua promptly waved her hand and asked, also, I still want to ask, Shui Yupeng's corpse, how should we deal with it? Hearing his master's question, Shui Tian unconsciously perked his ears and listened carefully. Hu Yuni sat down again and took a deep breath. He slowly calmed his excited mood and said, I came here today to report to Senior Immortal. This morning, I already discussed it with Gang Leader Zhang. Vice Gang Leader Shui Yupeng was resisting the invasion of the Righteous Tao Alliance and risked her life to pursue them. However, She mistakenly fell into the Righteous Tao Alliance's ambush and unfortunately fell. This is my Misty School's great loss. So, my Misty School wants to give her a grand funeral. Grandmaster. Shui Tian heard this and ran out a few steps. He knelt in front of Uyuni and cried, "Many thanks. Grandmaster, AI, this child, why are you thanking me? If you want to thank someone, you should thank gang leader Zhang and your master." Hu Yuni scolded, but his hand lovingly stroked Shui Tiantian's small head. Shui Tian heard this and indeed turned his head, wanting to thank Zhang Xiaohu and Zhang Xiaohua. Zhang Xiaohua waved her hand and said, "One is your master, the other is your second martial uncle. What's the point of thanking them? In the future, it's better to cultivate properly and not waste the kindness of your master and your second martial uncle." Shui Tian was quite obedient. His face showed unswerving determination as he nodded and said, "Many thanks to master and his second martial uncle. This disciple will engrave these in my heart." Hu Yuni and Li Jian said a few more words. The two looked at each other, and Hu Yuni turned his head to Zhang Xiaohu and said, "Gang leader Zhang, this old man has a few things to ask Senior Immortal. I hope gang leader Zhang won't take it to heart." Zhang Xiaohu was stunned, and then he smiled and said, "Elder Hu, please ask. If it's not convenient, I can also leave." Hu Yuni waved his hand and said there was no need. Zhang Xiaohua asked curiously, "Elder Hu, what is it?" "This." Hu Yuni hesitated before he said, "Senior Immortal is an expert in the path of immortality. Naturally, you know that our Misty School was a sect of the path of immortality 10,000 years ago. But later on, the inheritance of the path of immortality has been lost. Since Senior Immortal can help gang leader Zhang set foot on the path of immortality, then can you also find the inheritance of the path of immortality of our Misty School, so that our Misty School can continue to pass on the path of immortality of our Misty School? Of course, this request is a little too much. However, Immortal Elder is also the younger brother of the sect leader of Ethereal Sect. We can only be thick-skinned and make this request," Li Jian said with a smile. Ha ha! Zhang Xiaohua was amused. It turned out that Hu Yuni and Li Jian still didn't quite believe Zhang Xiaohu's words. They thought that Zhang Xiaohu's path of immortality was the same as Du Feng and Ding Chao's, which was why they asked Zhang Xiaohua to help them find the inheritance of the Misty School. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua laugh, Hu Yuni and Li Jian secretly complained, thinking that Zhang Xiaohua was unwilling to help. Just as they were about to speak, they heard Zhang Xiaohu say with a smile, "Elders, regarding this matter, you don't have to ask Xiaohua anymore. A few days ago, he already gave me the inheritance of the path of immortality of our Misty School." Li Jian and Hu Yuni were pleasantly surprised. Is this true?" "Yes, it is," Zhang Xiaohua added. "I have already entered your Misty Palace and Inheritance Pavilion, and I also told Second Brother how to enter and exit." Hu Yuni was really overjoyed. "Oh, right, I didn't take any of the things in your Misty School's Inheritance Pavilion. If you don't believe me, you can ask your gang leader. He also wanted to take a look. In the future, I won't be able to enter that place, so you don't have to worry," Zhang Xiaohua said again. I'm just surprised. I don't doubt Senior Immortal's intentions," Hu Yuni quickly explained. "Xiaohua is telling the truth. I've already checked the second floor of the Inheritance Pavilion. There's nothing missing." Zhang Xiao nodded and said, "Also, I saw the portrait of our Misty School's founder, Yang Haoya, on the first floor of the Inheritance Pavilion, and I entered the Dao through it. Please vote monthly, recommend, bookmark, and tip. If you like this work, you're welcome to vote monthly and recommend to Chidian. Come." Chapter 1136. Zhang Xiaohu then recounted what had happened in the Inheritance Pavilion. Finally, he said, "I have received great favor from martial ancestor Yang and have stepped onto the path of immortality. I will definitely pass down the teachings of Misty School's path of immortality. However, the situation in Jianghu right now is dangerous. My Misty School is being watched by the Incense Cult and the Righteous Path Alliance. Before I am 100% certain, I cannot reveal this matter. Otherwise, it will lead to the destruction of our sect. In the future, when I have the opportunity, I will choose some of my Misty School's talented disciples and secretly pass down the path of immortality to them. All right, after hearing Zhang Xiaohu's words, what else could Hu Yuni and Li Jian say? At this time, the Misty School was not only theirs, but also Zhang Xiaohu's. How could he not consider passing down the teachings of immortality? Also, the two elders need not be too worried. I once promised martial ancestor Yang that my Beidou School and Misty School will be eternal friends. In the future, my Beidou School will definitely not leave the legacy of Misty School alone. Zhang Xiaohua comforted them. Then, he slapped his head and said, "You still say that? Come, come, come. I will introduce you to my Beidou School's disciples." Hu Yuni and Li Jian both nodded. However, Zhang Xiaohua's first sentence almost made the two of them fall to the ground. "Go, bring your eldest senior brother here." This was Zhang Xiaohua's order to Xiaohua Ji. As expected, Hu Yuni and Li Jian didn't know whether to laugh or cry when they saw Zhang Byron, who didn't say he was 3 or 4 years old. They didn't know what to say, but when they saw Zhang Xiaohua's calm and collected appearance, they could only nod and congratulate him. After that, Zhang Xiaohua introduced his 2 disciples, Ji Xiaohua and Shui Tiantian, as well as his 3 junior sisters, Nie Qinyu, Zhang Pinger, and Oyen. Finally, he smiled and said, "Of the 7 disciples of my Beidou School, there is only one left. It should be Chu Jing from Dragon Mountain. I have already asked second brother to send someone to pick him up, but I don't know why he hasn't returned yet." Zhang Xiaohua nodded. Dragon Mountain is very far from here. It's impossible to return in a short period of time. I have already sent the elite disciples of the Divine Engineering Sect. Don't worry. Zhang Xiaohua shook his head slightly. The situation in Jianghu right now is unpredictable. The immortal abode on Mount Yaoshan is about to appear, and various forces are gathering around Mount Yaoshan. The journey may not be peaceful. I can't rest assured, so I still need to make a trip. By the way, Immortal Elder, since you mentioned Immortal's residence in advance, is it because of the rainbow glow on Mountain Yao? Hu Yuni suddenly asked. Yes. Zhang Xiaohua knew what Hu Yuni wanted to say. He said, "I have already warned second brother that your Misty School shouldn't interfere." Hu Yuni was very curious. Just as he was about to turn around and ask Zhang Xiaohu spoke himself. "Elder Hu Elderly, I also heard from Ancestral Master Yang about the Yaoshan Immortal Abode. Xiaohua wants to establish a sect on Yaoshan Immortal Abode and build his Big Dipper sect on top of the Immortal Abode. Of course, Little Blossom said that he wants to snatch the Immortal Mansion, but he might not be able to. My ethereal sect naturally has the qualifications to snatch it. I won't give this opportunity to him, just because he is my younger brother. But the Tenryu sect has already attracted all the sects in Jianghu, regardless of their size." Just by looking at the news from the Divine Mechanics Hall, the Dalan Temple, the Incense sect, the Alliance of the Righteous Path between the clouds and the water, the Fallen Stars Alliance, and the Canopy Dock have all turned out in full force to try their luck. Although we haven't received any news from the Tenryu sect, will they not come? Elder Hu, do you think it's better for my Misty School to conserve my energy and gain a firm foothold in Jianghu? Or do you think it's better for my Misty School to cultivate the Immortal's legacy and restore my reputation as a great Misty School? Or to compete with the other sects in Jianghu to snatch the Immortal's residence? When Hu Yuni and Li Jian heard about the rainbow-colored glow, they were also filled with passion and wanted to bring their disciples to try their luck. Now that they heard about the Immortal's residence, it wasn't something that could be easily obtained. With the Misty School's current strength and the power that had been declining for thousands of years, it was impossible for them to snatch it. If they hadn't obtained the Immortal's legacy, Hu Yuni might have tried to persuade them or even cooperate with Zhang Xiaohua. But now that they knew that they had obtained their own legacy and saw the dawn of the Misty School's revival, they naturally didn't want to give up their own legacy to snatch the Immortal's chestnut. Hu Yuni nodded and said, "Sect leader Zhang is right. Nowadays, the disciples of the Misty School can't differentiate between the good and the bad. The former disciples of the incense cult, the former disciples of the righteous alliance, the Misty School disciples that I brought, and the former disciples of the Misty School, we haven't even figured out our own situation yet. So how can we have the time to look for trouble? Moreover, if we bring these disciples over, the incense cult and the righteous alliance might just shout, and these disciples will all return to their sections. Won't we go for wool, but come home shorn? Since Elder who can see it so clearly, I don't need to explain. I was afraid that Elder who would misunderstand that I had given the immortal mansion to Little Blossom for personal reasons, because of my brother's matter. Of course not. Li Jian also laughed and said, everyone in Jianghu has seen the immortal's residence, and it doesn't belong to immortal Zhang alone. To be honest, the incense cult, the righteous alliance, the Dalan temple, and the Tenryu sect are all stronger than the Beta school. Whether immortal Zhang can come out on top, it's really hard to say. Zhang Xiaohua laughed and said, isn't that the case? If I don't snatch the immortal's residence, the Beidu school won't have a place to set up its sect. When that happens, the Misty school will have to help I. Haha, that's a must. The Misty school and the Beidu school are good friends forever, so we can't not help. Hu Yuni and Li Jian said in unison. They almost grabbed Zhang Xiaohua's hand and asked him to merge the Beidu school with the Misty school. The people of the Misty school had a long talk with the disciples of the Beidu school, led by Zhang Xiaohua. They reminisced about the past, entangled grievances, and looked forward to the bright and beautiful future. Only then did they bring the original chief disciple of the Misty school, Shui Tiantian, to take care of Shui Yupeng's funeral. They bid farewell to Zhang Xiaohua and left the Huanxi villa. After the people of the Misty school left, Zhang Xiaohua looked at O Yin and said, Junior sister O, what Elder who said is indeed reasonable. I was too conceited before and wanted to take the immortal's residence as the foundation of our Beidu school. But now that I think about it, although I have the cultivation of the path of immortality, I'm still far behind Shirtai Jingyi, an elder who, not to mention Sakura. Moreover, there are many people from the Xianjiao sect, the Dalan temple, and the Tenryu sect. We only have 8 people. Even the Misty school has to think about this matter. I'm afraid we'll have a hard time. Therefore, we still have to plan for both sides. I'm not familiar with the geographical location, and I even get lost when walking. This kind of thing still needs to be handled by you. Oyin smiled and said, Senior Brother Sect Leader, this matter is naturally handled by me, so you don't have to worry about it. Actually, I've already been looking around. If there's a suitable place, I might as well buy it with some money. Buy it with money. When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, she was a little stunned. Then, she smiled and said, Junior Sister O, I was just joking when I said that I would buy you a place with money. Our Beta school started off as a path of immortality. If we were to build it in a densely populated place, where we find the chi of heaven and earth to cultivate, you'd better? Or I'll look for my second brother and ask him to pay attention to a place with beautiful scenery. Oyan's face was a little red. She knew in her heart that she didn't have the aptitude for cultivation. Zhang Xiaohua accepted her as a disciple out of gratitude, and also because she valued her ability to deal with things. She had misunderstood the first thing that Zhang Xiaohua told her, so she immediately stood up and said, I understand. I misunderstood Senior Brother's meaning and delayed Senior Brother's matter. It's all my fault. I'll do as Senior Brother said. Why would Zhang Xiaohua think so much? He had picked up too many scraps in the past. This immortal mansion, he also treated it as a magic tool and wanted to steal it. He even shamelessly told Zhang Xiaohua that he valued this thing and that the Misty school shouldn't get involved. Now that she thought about it, she realized that she had overestimated herself. There were many heroes in Jianghu, and there were many capable people. Not to mention the incense school and other path of immortality sects, who could guarantee that there wouldn't be Zhang Xiaohua in the other path of immortality sects in Jianghu. She thought about how she had always been hiding behind others, pretending to be a pig to eat an elephant. Maybe there was someone she couldn't see who had the strength to fight with her. Therefore, when she heard O Yin blame herself, Zhang Xiaohua quickly waved her hand and said, What are you talking about? I'm just... Sigh, I didn't think it through and put all my eggs in the basket of a mortal mansion. How can I blame you for this? Anyway, our beta school will always be the same when it opens. Don't worry, take your time to find it. We'll talk about it when we find a suitable place. Hee hee, this place is pretty good. We don't have to pay. If we can't find it, we'll just cultivate here. Nia Chinyu laughed and covered her mouth, saying, It's better to go to Rejuvenation Valley here. Once Senior Brother Sect leader reveals his identity, Father can't wait to give Senior Brother Sect leader sect, leader sect, leader sect, leader sect leader. After she finished speaking, her face turned red. Beside her, Zhang Pinger glared at her for no reason. The meaning in her eyes was obvious. There's no need for that. At the very least, we'll go to Dragon Mountain. That's Chu Jing's home. It's also the place of a path of immortality senior. Since they decided not to use a mortal mansion as the first choice for Beidou School's opening, Zhang Xiaohua put the matter of a mortal mansion aside. He stood up and said, Out of the 7 disciples of Beidou School, we're still missing one. Master has a feeling that there's something wrong with that little disciple you haven't met yet. Master will go and take a look. Yes, Senior Brother Sect leader. Don't worry. Yin and the others smiled and said, We'll definitely do a good job with the opening of the school. When Senior Brother Sect leader returns, we'll give him a surprise. Zhang Xiao understood how they felt. However, he had only gone to Dragon Mountain and back for 10 days. What would he have done? He didn't point it out and only smiled as he walked out of the room. Please vote for me. Please vote for me. Please add me. Chapter 1137. When Zhang Kai and Gui Sufei heard that Zhang Xiaohua was going out again, they couldn't help but worry. However, when they heard that she was going to look for the last disciple of the Beta School and that the disciple might be in danger, they couldn't help but urge Zhang Xiaohua to leave quickly. Zhang Xiaohua bade farewell to her parents and bid farewell to Zhang Xiaolong, Lu Qian, and Mr. Liu before flying off. At this moment, Little Black and Little Yellow couldn't stand it anymore. They flew to Zhang Xiaohua's side and shouted in Zhang Xiaohua's heart that they wanted to leave with her. How can this be? Just as Zhang Xiaohua was thinking in her heart, Little Black shouted, Why not? Bad. Zhang Xiaohua rolled her eyes and said in her heart, Little Black, Little Yellow, what do you think is the most dangerous place right now? What kind of person needs the most protection? How would the two of them know? They could only shake their heads vigorously. I'm sure the two of you know that a legendary item is about to be born. All the bad guys in the pugilistic world are running to our house. Don't you think our house is the most dangerous place right now? The two of them looked at each other and nodded slightly. However, they still shook their heads slightly. Furthermore, look, there's Byron, Xiaohuaji, and our parents. These are all the people you have to protect. Oh, that's right, from now on, you will be the guardian beasts of my beta school. Furthermore, the two of you have grown up. From now on, you'll have to bear the responsibility of guarding the beta school. Our parents' beta school will be handed over to the two of you. Zhang Xiaohua couldn't explain whether she was the father or the mother. She just called herself father and mother. In any case, it was fine as long as the two of them knew. As expected, when they heard Zhang Xiaohua say that they had grown up, the two of them flew happily in the air. They wanted to show off their growth. When they heard that they were going to be divine beasts in the future, they became even more spirited. They cried out loudly and flew to the walls of the courtyard. They looked around vigilantly and ignored Zhang Xiaohua. After comforting the two little things, Zhang Xiaohua turned around and looked at the 4 people standing in the courtyard. She nodded slightly and formed a hand seal. Then, she soared into the sky and gradually disappeared from sight. The eyes of Nie Qianyu and the others were full of envy and longing. After Zhang Xiaohua flew away, they all went back to their rooms and immersed themselves in cultivation, hoping that one day they could also fly so freely. Yao Mountain, which was located to the southwest of the Misty Mountain Villa, could be said to be filled with undercurrents. It was already autumn, but for some reason, the weather in Yao Mountain was extremely abnormal. Not only was there no autumn wind, but there was also a gentle breeze that made people feel warm, as if it was spring. on Yao Mountain. Because of the mild weather, the grass and trees on the mountain did not wither and were as lush as before. Moreover, because of the increasingly rich chi of heaven and earth, the green color was almost dripping. In the eyes of ordinary people, it could only be seen in astonishment. However, in the eyes of the people of Jianghu, who came from all directions, it was more and more confirmed the previous rumors. It had been more than 2 months since the seven-colored light appeared on Yao Mountain. All the sects in Jianghu that had some ideas had all turned out in full force and sent all their elites to the vicinity of Yao Mountain. Even the previously hesitant sects could no longer remain calm when they heard the rumors in the Jianghu. From the beginning, there was the appearance of an immortal's magical treasure, to the appearance of a heaven-shaking magical treasure, to the appearance of an immortal's cave, and even the appearance of a passageway to the heavens. Those sects that were slow to react changed their previous laziness and sent out all their disciples, wanted to fight for a piece of the pie in this peerless opportunity. Forget about the passage to heaven. Just hearing the news of an immortal's cave, there seemed to be no one in this world who could remain calm, not to mention that there was a passage to heaven. Thinking about it, it made sense. If it was a magic weapon, one could certainly command the wind and the clouds in Jianghu and become the most powerful person in the world. However, if one invested too much in a sect, and a sect with ulterior motives suddenly attacked one's nest, the loss would outweigh the gain. However, if it was an immortal's cave or a passage, it was a different story. If one seized the immortal's cave, one sect would be an aristocratic family with an immortal's cave. Why would they still need their previous sect? Or if they and their disciples had all passed through the passage, they would no longer need to care about this mortal world. In fact, there were people in Jianghu like Hu Yuni, Zhang Xiaohu, and the others who were calm and collected. However, everyone else was like that. If you did not go, you would not have the opportunity to become an immortal in Yao Mountain. Then who would not go? Therefore, they scrambled to be the first to surround Yao Mountain, which had a radius of more than 10 miles, so that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Of course, although it was so packed that not even a drop of water could trickle through, and although all the sects in Jianghu had come, there was still a distinction between those who came first and those who came first. To the south of Mount Yao, in an area roughly half a kilometer in circumference, there was a thin line that surrounded the area. There were many disciples inside, as well as many tents. Outside of the line, there were various heroes of the Jianghu, whose faces were filled with displeasure. However, none of them dared to cross the line, because the disciples inside the line were none other than between the clouds and the water, who had been in the limelight at the Wulin assembly of the incense cult. At this moment, in the center tent of the camp between the clouds and the water, Bai Yinxiu was sitting on a chair with an angry expression. In front of the chair, there were more than 10 people standing or standing. Who is it this time? Who is it who leaked the news of the immortal's cave in Yao Mountain? Bai Yinxiu could not help but scold. The tent was very quiet. There were 3 white-haired people with ruddy complexions. The old man with the temperament of an immortal was sitting closest to Bai Yinxiu with his eyes closed, ignoring him. Liang Cangshu and the others looked at each other without saying a word. Li Su, I'm talking about you. How are you going to manage Huiming Hall? You can't even find out this little bit of information? Bai Yinxiu pointed out. The big-mouthed Li Su had no choice but to brace himself and step forward. He smiled apologetically and said, reporting to sect leader, this subordinate. Since I received sect leader's order to arrange for the elite disciples to come to Yao Mountain, I've already warned them not to leak any information, otherwise they will be killed without mercy. Didn't sect leader also see it? It has been a long time since the martial arts assembly of the incense cult, and no one knows about the matter of between the clouds and the water in Yao Mountain, right? Moreover, after the 7-colored rays appeared in Yao Mountain, this subordinate knew that it was impossible to hide the matter, so I immediately ordered my disciples to spread the news of the immortal's magical instrument appearing in Yao Mountain. First, it was to warn others that it was an item of the immortal's path, and it was useless for martial artists like you to obtain it, so it was better for them to obediently stay in their own homes. Second, it was to show that the Immortals' Path sect would definitely go there, and it was normal for between the clouds and the water to appear. Third, it was to conceal the matter of the Immortals' Cave and to confuse the incense cult and the Dahlin Temple. You have done a good job in this matter. This sect leader is very satisfied. When the Immortals' Cave is in my hands, I will definitely reward you. Baincio nodded. But the Immortals' Cave was a message from the founder of Between the Clouds and the Water. No one in Jianghu would know about it. Why did the Immortals' Cave spread in Jianghu? How is this possible? Li Su thought for a moment, then smiled. Sect leader, perhaps you are thinking too much. There is no lack of people in Jianghu who have strange ideas. Didn't you hear it? Now, it has become a passage to the Immortals' world, and as long as one can pass through this passage, everyone will become an immortal. Doesn't this also cover up the Immortals' Cave? Bah! Baincio scolded. This is even worse. If it was the Immortals' Cave, I'm afraid that only people from the big sect would be able to pass through. Now that it has become a passage, anyone with some skill in Jianghu would want to join the fun. This subordinate doesn't know who leaked the news? Li Su lowered his head, but suddenly his eyes lit up. Was it Ren Xiaoyao from the incense cult? Baincio nodded at first, then shook his head. Ren Xiaoyao knows about the Immortals' Cave. If it was before the martial arts convention, he would definitely have reported it to Abbess Jing Yi. But I heard that Ren Xiaoyao has an affair with Zixia, and Zixia. Baincio paused for a moment, then said, Zixia is an important person in another sect. Presumably, she is no longer in the incense cult. Whether or not Ren Xiaoyao is in the incense cult is two different things. Would he have told Abbess Jingyi? No matter if he told the incense cult or the other sect, they would be like me between the clouds and the water. They would make a fortune in silence. Who would let the whole world know? Sect leader, could it be that immortal? Liang Sangshu probed. Him? Baincio still shook his head. No, that person. I'm not sure which sect he is from. If he knew, he would have come himself. How could he let others know? Absolutely impossible. Alas, forget it. Even if he knew, what could he do? Now that the whole Jianghu is here, 7 out of 10 stops have come. That person's trick has already succeeded. Even if he is found, it will be useless. Baincio waved her hand with an indifferent look on her face. Then she sneered and said, How can those evil people know that I have planned in advance? When I between the clouds and the water unknowingly get the Immortals' Cave, let me see their sorrowful faces. By the way, Li, have people from the incense cult, the Dahlin Temple, and the Righteous Alliance arrived? Sect leader, between the clouds and the water came early and occupied the south side of Yao Mountain. The Dahlin Temple's Shinrong sect occupied the north side of Yao Mountain. Now, they have set up camp, but the defense is very tight. There are also immortal techniques. My Huiming Hall's disciples can't see the scene. I don't know if Master Changsheng and the others have arrived. Changsheng, Changgung, and Changxing are here. One of the 3 old men who had been silent with his eyes closed opened his mouth. Not only them, even Yuan Dao, Yuan Ming, and Yuan Wu are here. Master Yuan Dao and the others are here too? Baincio exclaimed. The 3 of them are still alive? Haha, since the 3 of us are still alive, it's normal that the 3 of them are alive too. Another old man said. Then, Baincio regained his composure and smiled. With Master Hao Yun, Master Hao Yu, and Master Hao Feng here, who would between the clouds and the water be afraid of? Please vote monthly, recommend, bookmark, and tip. Chapter 1138. The last old man opened his eyes and said coldly, The Dahlin Temple's Yuan Tian, Yuan Dao, Yuan Ming, and Yuan Wu were famous in Jianghu back then. They were the famous 4 protectors of the Dahlin Temple. For the sake of the Shindao sect's legacy, we didn't dare to show our faces. How could we have any reputation? Even if we stood in front of the people of Jianghu, no one would know. Taoist Master Hao Yun's words raise the prestige of others and destroy your own morale. Bai Yinxiu smiled like a flower and said, if Taoist Master Hao Yun says that you are the mysterious cultivator who seriously injured the Dalan Temple's Master Yuan Tian decades ago, then who in Jianghu wouldn't know? Haha. Hearing this, Taoist Master Hao Yun's face showed a smug expression. Seriously injuring the Dalan Temple's abbot and then dying without treatment was one of his earth-shattering achievements in his early years. He couldn't help but feel proud and proud. It can't be that much. Master Yuantian's cultivation is very high. Back then, he underestimated me, so I took advantage of him. Although Yuantian died, I was also injured and will need to recuperate for several years to recover. Taoist Master, you are too modest. Wait until our sect destroys this immortal mansion and our name shakes the world. That will be the day you can hold your head high. It's all the world of you young people. What hope do we old people have? If it weren't for the importance of this matter, why would we be willing to come out? Taoist Master Hao Feng waved his hand and thought for a moment before asking, in this martial assembly, did you see Abbess Shu Qing and Abbess Shu Jie? Bai Yinxiu's face showed surprise again, but then he covered his mouth with his hand and sighed. I heard that the two elders of the incense cult passed away a long time ago. Could it be that they were like the Dalan Temple's Master Yuan Dao and the others, and also cultivated in seclusion? Bai Zhongmin, although you have stepped into the path of immortality, the mysteries of the path of immortality are far beyond your current cultivation. The immortal Dao was different from the martial Dao. It could only temper one's inner strength and increase one's cultivation. One could flaunt one's bravery in the pugilistic world and be in the limelight for a period of time. When one cultivates the immortal Tao to a high level, not only can one overturn rivers and seas with a raise of one's hand, one can even prolong one's lifespan. Then wouldn't they all become immortals? Bai Yinxiu was somewhat disdainful, but his face was still respectful. If what Hao Yu said is true, then where did the people of the Tao of immortality go? Sigh. The world has changed and vital energy has been annihilated. We cultivators of the immortal Tao have lost the foundation of our existence. How can we live forever? Taoist Master Hao Yu sighed and said, what I just said is only the phenomenon of the cultivation of the Tao of immortality reaching the pinnacle. But even our Xindao sect's founder, Wan Wuxin, did not reach such a realm. Otherwise, he wouldn't have had to use a primordial spirit projection to pass down his Tao teachings. What level is the primordial spirit projection at? Bai Yinxiu asked curiously. I don't know. Taoist Master Hao Yu shook his head. Maybe it wasn't the pinnacle of the realm in ancient times, but now it's already the cultivation of an immortal. Then, as one's cultivation of the Tao of immortality deepens, will one's lifespan also increase? Bai Yinxiu probed. Exactly. But how can an ordinary cultivation have such an effect? That's why my fellow disciples, the 3 monks of the Dalan Temple, and Shu Qing and Shu Jie of the incense sect all quietly cultivate, hoping to break through the realm and prolong our lifespan in one fell swoop. I owe 3 Taoist masters this disciple has disturbed your cultivation. I hope you can forgive me. Bai Yinxiu hurriedly got up and bowed. It's fine, it's fine. Taoist Master Hao Yu waved his hand and said, the immortal mansion is a matter of great importance. Even if you didn't say anything, we would have left the mountain. What do you mean? Bai Yinxiu asked curiously. The immortal mansion, who knows what's inside? How can we not be curious about something that even ancestral master Huan covets? Even if we can't take back the immortal mansion and make it the foundation of our Shundao sect's inheritance, as long as we can get the ancient Tao of immortality pills inside, we might be able to break through our current bottleneck and advance our cultivation to the next level. Taoist Master's lifespan will also increase. Correct. Taoist Master Hao Yu continued. If there's some kind of immortal pill that can prolong one's life, we only need one. Wouldn't all our problems be solved? Life-prolonging pill? Bai Yinxiu exclaimed. Does the immortal mansion really have such a legendary pill? Maybe, maybe not, but as long as there's a chance, who would give it up? Taoist master, how you laughed. That's right, Taoist master is right. Bai Yanqiu's face flushed red. He raised his head and asked, Li, what about the Righteous Alliance and incense cult's actions? Li Su was listening to Bai Yanqiu and the three Taoist masters talking. He didn't expect to be suddenly asked, as if he didn't hear it at all. Not only Li Su, but even Liang Cangshu and the others were intoxicated. It was as if the legendary thing was about to happen to them. Li, Bai Yanqiu asked discontentedly. I'm asking you. Oh, sect leader. Li Su came to his senses and hurriedly replied, What I heard was really unimaginable. I've learned a lot. Please forgive me, sect leader. Haha, it's all right. Not only you, but even I was enlightened after hearing Taoist master's words. I know the importance of the immortal mansion this time. Fortunately, I had the primordial spirit projection of Ancestor Huan to remind me between the clouds and the water, so I got the upper hand. The chances of getting the immortal mansion or entering the immortal mansion in advance have greatly increased. When the time comes, as long as there are benefits, all of you will be my disciples between the clouds and the water. How can I leave you out? Thank you, sect leader. Li Su and the others were overjoyed and bowed to thank him. There's no need. Li, what about the incense cult and the Righteous Alliance? Sect leader, the Righteous Alliance came a little late. They set up camp on the west side of Yao Mountain. There are about 200 disciples now. I heard that the several thousand disciples of the Righteous Alliance who stayed at Misty Peak were all captured by the disciples of the Misty School. None of them escaped. Zhang San suffered such a big loss at the hands of the incense cult, but he didn't go looking for trouble with the incense cult or the Misty School. That's strange. Sect leader, if it weren't for the immortal mansion, I'm afraid Zhang San of the Righteous Alliance would have flipped out long ago. However, the several thousand disciples didn't lose their martial arts or their lives. Zhang San only has to spare some time in the future to kill them. Isn't he afraid that the Misty School's Zhang Xiaohu won't hand over the several thousand disciples? Li Su laughed. Li is right. The Misty School took advantage of the Immortal Mansion incident. Bai Yanqiu nodded. All right, what about the Misty School? Didn't they come to Yaoshan with the incense cult? According to the disciples' report, everything in Misty Peak is normal. However, about 10 days ago, the exiled Huyuni brought another group of disciples of the Misty School back. I think the disciples of the Misty School are now racking their brains over who should be the leader of the Misty School. That's right. In Misty Peak, the disciples of the Misty School led by Zhang Xiaoyu, the disciples of the Misty School led by Huyuni, and the disciples of the incense cult led by Ming Qing. Yes, there are also several thousand disciples of the Righteous Alliance who were captured. These people are in a mess. How can they spare the energy to come to Yaoshan? Perhaps only when the incense cult's Abbess Jing graces them with her presence can they completely suppress them. Not necessarily. Abbess Jing said that she won't interfere in the Misty School's matter anymore. If she interferes, she will give herself a reason to do so. In the Jianghu, there are many cases of men stealing and women prostituting themselves. Abbess Jing is just burying her head in the sand. Who doesn't know this? Sect leader is wise and farsighted. I think the Misty School has also received orders from Abbess Jing to bide their time and not make any moves. Who cares? If they don't come, it's because there are fewer opponents. Yes, they can't be called opponents. They're just a nuisance. Bai Yanqiu waved his hand as if he was shooing away an annoying fly. Then he smiled apologetically at the three immortals and asked, Immortals, please enlighten me. The two abbesses of the incense cult, Shu Qing and Shu Jia, what are their cultivations? This was the question that Bai Yanqiu was most concerned about. Immortal Hao Yun and the other two looked at each other and shook their heads. The incense cult has been hiding from the world, and Shu Qing and Shu Jia are both older than us. They also entered the path of immortality earlier. Their current cultivation, if there are no accidents, they should be above us. It's just that they haven't broken through the bottleneck, so they're all qi refinement cultivations. There's no essential difference. When Bai Yanqiu heard this, he frowned slightly. Just as he was about to speak, A divine sense descended from the sky like a waterfall and swept past the tent that Bai Yinxiu and the others were in. Sakura? Immortal Hao Yun frowned and asked curiously, Tenryu's sect, how did they come so quickly? However, the divine sense seemed to have sensed something and immediately swept back. It actually scanned the bodies of Taoist Hao Yun and the other two several times. You're going too far. Immortal Hao Yun was furious. Even if you're the most powerful person in the world, you can't do this. No, Immortal Hao Yun, this isn't Sakura. Bai Yinxiu suddenly shouted. Disciple has seen Sakura's divine sense in the incense cult. It didn't seem to be this strong, a nameless immortal expert. The four people looked at each other, their eyes full of astonishment. Their figures rose into the air and flew straight out of the tent. Zhang Xiaohua left the Misty Mountain Villa. She originally wanted to go straight south and look for Chu Jing along the way to the Dragon Mountain. However, after flying for a while, she felt a little reluctant. Reluctant about what? Needless to say, it was the Immortal Mansion on Yao Mountain. This was the Beidou School's foundation that Zhang Xiaohua had identified early on. She wanted to put the Immortal Mansion into her pocket between the clouds and the water. However, after careful consideration, she knew that this Immortal Mansion wasn't something that she could swallow in one go. How could she feel at ease? She unconsciously changed her mind and turned around to fly to the west. Far away from Yao Mountain, Zhang Xiaohua's divine sense saw Lu Town, Bao Town, Pingyao Town, Ninyang Town, Ninjiao Town, and so on. They were all filled with Jianghu people. Every street and alley was filled with people holding shining swords and spears. Ordinary people closed their doors tightly and peeped outside. No one dared to go out easily. Sigh. Zhang Xiaohua couldn't help but scratch her head. Chapter 1139. Although Yaoshan was about 100 li away from Lu Town, it was only half a day's journey in the eyes of the people of Jianghu. They didn't dare to follow the super sects between the clouds and the water, the incense cult, and the Dalan Temple, and set up their camps close to Yaoshan. They also couldn't follow the super sects and set up camps around them, like the Falling Stars Alliance and the Firmament Dock. Even though it wasn't a long journey, it couldn't stop them from setting foot on the path to immortality. They occupied the towns and villages around Yaoshan and waited for the passage to the immortal realm to appear. Zhang Xiaohua flew very fast and arrived near Yaoshan in a flash. Since he came from the west, his divine sense saw the incense cult's camp first. Sure enough, this was the style of super sect. The area within half a kilometer had been cleaned up. Some of the outer sect disciples were on duty, some were practicing, and there were even more supervising some of the craftsmen who had been temporarily recruited from the surrounding towns. They seemed to be building some sort of pavilion or something. Are you kidding me? Zhang Xiaohua thought to himself. We're here to rob the Immortal's mansion, not to play. Abbess Jing usually doesn't show much extravagance in the incense cult, but now she's talking about extravagance outside. Thinking about how Jing Yi poisoned her second brother, Zhang Xiaohua's heart was filled with anger. She thought to herself, when Jing Yi comes, should I give her a taste of my own medicine? Then Zhang Xiaohua used his divine sense to look north of Yaoshan. There were many bald monks here, and it was clear that this was the Dalan Temple's camp. The Dalan Temple's camp was very simple. There were idle monks around an invisible area, wandering around from time to time. The people around them were also some distance away. In the camp, the flowers and trees didn't move. Many of the Dalan Temple's monks were sitting on the ground. Next to the camp was a small sect. From time to time, disciples would send things to the Dalan Temple's monks. For some reason, the elders weren't in the camp. Zhang Xiaohua looked around and then used his divine sense to look west. The situation in the west was completely different from that of the Dalan Temple. Although it wasn't as beautiful as the incense cult's camp, many wooden buildings were gradually taking shape. There were huts built against the mountains, small pavilions near the water, and even a square table under a 100-year-old tree. Zhang Xiaohua first frowned when he saw the disciples in the camp dressed in the clothes of different sects, But when he saw the disciples in the robes of the Righteous Alliance gesturing around, Zhang Xiaohua understood that this was the territory of Alliance Master Zhang San of the Righteous Alliance. There weren't any powerful people in the camp, so they hadn't arrived yet. Then, the camp in the south has the most people, and the most well-prepared must be between the clouds and the water. Zhang Xiaohua had already used her divine sense to look around the camp between the clouds and the water. She knew that they had the most people and that Bai Yinxiu had already made preparations. So she didn't dare to use her divine sense too early. But where's the Tenryu sect? Don't tell me they haven't received news of the appearance of the Holy Realm's residents. Zhang Xiaohua had long forgotten about the matter of the Holy Realm's residents. Now that she had some free time, she threw her thoughts to her dreams. That's possible. The Tenryu sect is a descendant of the devil cult and has nothing to do with the way of immortality. Even if they get the Holy Realm's residents, it might not be of great use. There's really no need for them to get involved in this mess. Zhang Xiaohua thought to herself, but if that's the case, I won't have the chance to see my dreams. Alas, I don't know why I'm always afraid of going to the Tenryu sect. If Sakura finds out about my way of immortality, I don't know what will happen. Maybe it's normal that he won't let me see my dreams. At this moment, Zhang Xiaohua felt the invisible pressure from the most powerful person in the world, Sakura. He was also afraid of the difference between way of immortality and way of immortality and way of immortality. It seemed to be a kind of escape and also a kind of inexplicable, heartfelt worry. Let's not talk about Sakura's attitude first, but what about Dream? I don't know if it's a freak combination of factors or a trick from the heavens. I've never shown my way of immortality in front of Dream, nor have I explained it to her. Dream has always thought that my way of immortality cultivation is useless and that I'm only a person with brute force. If she tells Sakura about this situation, he might take a liking to her. Didn't he say that at worst, he'll give me all his way of immortality cultivation? But what if Dream knows that I'm a way of immortality cultivator? Won't she choose me? Zhang Xiaohua suddenly became worried about personal gains and losses, and his divine sense naturally swept towards the camp between the clouds and the water. This is... Zhang Xiaohua's divine sense swept over the central tent, but immediately his divine sense returned and circled around the tent a few times. Who's this person? He actually has divine sense? He actually has such a high way of immortality cultivation. Oh no, there's actually 3 of them. Zhang Xiaohua's mind turned rapidly, and before he could turn around, he saw 4 people flying out of the central tent. The 3 in front were white-haired old men with ruddy complexions, and the one behind them was the middle-aged, beautiful woman, Bai Yinxiu. Oh no! Zhang Xiaohua saw Bai Yinxiu and immediately knew that these 3 old men must be Bai Yinxiu's teachers. Thinking of the many benefits he had gained between the clouds and the water, Zhang Xiaohua didn't care that he was hiding himself. Without waiting for Bai Yinxiu and the 3 helpers she found to come near, Zhang Xiaohua made a hand seal and immediately changed direction, flying straight toward the south. Alas, a typical case of having a guilty conscience. Sure enough, Taoist Master Hao Yun and the other 2 flew out of the tent. Looking at the empty sky, they swept their divine sense to the place where their divine sense had been just now, but didn't find any trace of a person. They couldn't help but be shocked. They saw Taoist Master Hao Yun standing in the air, respectfully saluting the place where Zhang Xiaohua had been standing. Which fellow Taoist? Can you show yourself for a chat? But Zhang Xiaohua had already left, and the place was empty. Who would answer him? After a while, Taoist Master Hao Yun still didn't get a reply. He waved his hand, and the 2 Taoist masters, Hao Yu and Hao Feng, flew to Hao Yun's side, forming a strange triangle. Then, Hao Yu took out a small hammer from his chest, only the size of a palm, and shouted, "If fellow Taoist doesn't show yourself, don't blame I for making a move." After a while, the small hammer in his hand shook, and he was about to strike when Taoist Master Hao Yun stopped him. "Junior brother, don't make a move. That person, I'm afraid he's already gone. It can't be. Hao Feng said curiously. We sensed the divine sense and immediately flew out. But in just a moment, no matter how high this person's cultivation is, it's impossible for him to escape from our divine sense. Hao Feng didn't believe in heresy and swept his divine sense around again. He didn't find anything unusual and then sighed. Which sex fellow Taoist is this? He's actually in such a realm. Could it be that he's already entered? Maybe. Hao Yun was a little disinterested and waved his hand. Let's go down. Many people have already seen us. Sure enough, around between the clouds and the water, many Jianghu disciples had excited expressions on their faces, pointing and gesturing at Hao Yun and the others. Some of them even looked at Yao Shan, their eyes full of enthusiasm. Senior brother? Who could this person be? Hao Feng entered the tent and asked immediately. It's probably Shu Qing or Shu Jie from the fragrance cult. Hao Yun thought for a while and said, such a divine sense, only someone with Sakura's cultivation can have it. If Shu Qing and Shu Jie didn't cultivate with the help of the fragrance cult's array, they wouldn't be able to reach such a realm. Spiritual Master. Bai Yinxiu looked at the three people and said tentatively, I've seen Sakura's divine sense in the fragrance cult, and it didn't seem so strong. Could it be Shu Qing or Shu Jie really passed that bottleneck? Hao Yun and the others were shocked. Then this immortal mansion were a little less confident. Senior brother, don't worry. If she really passed that realm, would she suddenly leave? Hao Yu said, I'm afraid she's using some magic tool to strengthen her divine sense. Of course. Hao Yun slapped his forehead and said, I almost forgot about that. The fragrant religion has a unique secret technique that can expand one's spiritual energy with the help of spirit arrays. This Taoist suffered a loss in the fragrant religion back then. So how could he have forgotten? Junior brother is right. However, this magic tool is a little strange. It can even hide one's body. Even if her body is hidden, do we still have to be afraid of her? Our lightning hammer, lightning all, and heaven-shaking drum are not to be trifled with. If we really fight, we brothers will set up the heaven-shaking thunder array and punish her. Shu Qing or Shu Jie will crush her body and consign her to eternal damnation. All right, since Shu Qing is here, she must be here to scout the situation first. The aroma cult is right behind her. Let's be more cautious and let our disciples scout the situation first. It's better to get things done as soon as possible. Yes, this disciple understands. This disciple will immediately send his disciples. Bai Yinxiu replied with cupped hands. Not to mention that the people of between the clouds and the water thought that Zhang Xiaohua was the grand elder of the fragrance cult and secretly thought of countermeasures. Zhang Xiaohua was as anxious as a stray dog. After flying for a long time, she finally stopped and gently patted her heart. Only then did she realize that she had hidden her body. It seemed that her flying technique was better than the other parties, so there was no need for her to be in such a difficult situation. AI, forget it. Just between the clouds and the water alone has produced 3 people whose cultivation is much stronger than I. What fragrance cult, what Dalan temple? Do I even need to say anything? These people must be the disciples of the upper generation of these immortal Tao sections. The cultivation of the immortal Tao is calculated in decades. How can this poor Taoist reach that level? Even if it's Nanjing, Yi, or the Grand Elders, I may not be a match for them. How can I compete with them for the immortal mansion? A frog at the bottom of a well, arrogant and ignorant. Perhaps this is the evaluation of I a while ago. Zhang Xiaohua secretly mocked herself. At this moment, another divine sense swept over from the south. It actually directly found Zhang Xiaohua. Please cast a monthly vote. Please cast a recommendation vote. Please collect. Please tip. Thank you. Chapter 1140. Zhang Xiaohua had concealed his figure and was flying in the air. Just as he was about to take a breather, suddenly a divine sense swept across the sky and locked onto Zhang Xiaohua. Who is it? Zhang Xiaohua was shocked. He had concealed his figure, but he didn't expect that the divine sense would still find him. Without thinking, he pinched a spell and flew to the side of the sky. His own divine sense also swept towards the source of the divine sense. Not far away, there were two masked old women in palace attire. They held a phoenix head crutch in their hands and used the levitation technique to fly towards the direction where Zhang Xiaohua had just stood. Oh, the incense cult. Who are these two nuns? Zhang Xiaohua's divine sense had already seen the two old women in palace attire and masks. Looking down, he saw a group of young girls in palace attire. The four people in front were Nun Jing-yi, Nun Shuizhen, Peacock, and Chen-Chen. Who else could the two nuns floating in the air be? Naturally, they were Shu Qing and Shu Jie, the two grand elders of the incense cult that Hao Yunjinren had mentioned. Nun Shu Qing's divine sense occasionally found Zhang Xiaohua, who was concealed in the air. She immediately used her divine sense to lock onto him and called out to Nun Shu Jie. The two of them flew into the air. However, they didn't expect that the other party's divine sense was also so powerful. Not only did he discover them in time, he also saw Nun Jing-yi behind them. They couldn't help but be stunned. Just as Hao Yunjinren had guessed, they did rely on the instrument left by the ancestors of the incense cult to amplify their divine sense. At this time, their divine sense should be as strong as Sakura's. The strength of the other party's divine sense immediately woke them up. They looked at each other and said in unison, "Sakura?" Immediately, the two of them didn't dare to be careless. One of them took out a small white flag and the other a small whip. Nun Shuqing unfurled the white flag, and more than 10 snow-white lotuses bloomed around the two of them, surrounding them. However, just as the white flag was unfurled, Zhang Xiaohua had already used the flying technique to escape far away. Even though Nun Shu Jie and the others' divine sense was fast, and their divine sense had already locked onto Zhang Xiaohua, the range of their divine sense was limited. Even with the Imperial Wind technique, they couldn't catch up. In their divine sense, Zhang Xiaohua's trace was gradually getting farther away, and they couldn't catch up. However, Nun Shuqing and Nun Shu Jie were well aware of the Tenryu's sect's way of doing things. Although their divine sense didn't detect anything abnormal within a radius of several hundred feet, they were afraid that the person they saw just now had an even more concealment technique. Therefore, they didn't put away the white flag, and Nun Shu Jie's small whip also lightly danced in her hand. Bright red peach blossoms also flashed in the air along with the dance. Even though the peach blossoms were beautiful, when the petals of the peach blossoms rotated, it actually made a ci sound. If a flesh and blood body touched it, wouldn't their skin and flesh be torn apart? After a moment, Nun Shuqing and Nun Shu Jie looked at each other and nodded slightly. Only then did they put away the white flag and small whip and landed. Nun Jing-yi floated up and said respectfully, "Two grand elders, is there something abnormal?" Hee, it's more than abnormal. I didn't expect Sakura to be hiding nearby. I don't know what he's planning. Sakura. Nun Jing-yi was stunned. What is he doing here? Then her expression changed, and she said in surprise, "Could it be that he's planning an ambush? We don't know. Just now, my divine sense accidentally found an abnormality in the air in front of us. When I looked carefully, there was actually someone hiding in front of us. But that person's concealment technique is very wonderful. I can only see the person, but I can't see the person clearly. I don't even know who that person is." Nun Jingyi's expression changed slightly, and she said with some confusion, "Since Grand Elder can't see him, how do you know it's Sakura?" Jing-yi, in this world, if it's not Sakura, who else can have a divine sense that can surpass mine? But, Grand Elder, Sakura appeared in our Fragrance Cult's martial arts convention. This disciple has already told Grand Elder that even though Sakura's divine sense is tyrannical, it's not much different from Grand Elder's divine sense. If Grand Elder's divine sense is added with the nebula chain, it should be more powerful than Sakura's divine sense. This is strange. Nun Shuqing was shocked. In this world, whose divine sense is stronger than mine, and who can fly, other than Sakura of the devil cult? Who else can it be? Taoist Pan and Nanjing, he called out. It's the Taoist Pan and who killed Longting Villa with a sword in Rejuvenation Valley and Class Fugue with a sword in Misty Peak. Panin? Nun Shu Qing shook her head slightly and looked at Nun Shu Jia. Junior sister, have you heard of this person's name? No, there are only a few big sects of the Immortal Tao, and very few people have stepped on the Immortal Tao to be able to cultivate to this level. How can he be a nobody? If you didn't mishear, then he must be using a fake name. All right, Grand Elder. Nun Jing, he clapped her hands and remembered. The Shindao sect is also an Immortal Tao inheritance, but they haven't shown themselves for thousands of years. Who can guarantee that there aren't a few seniors in the Shindao sect who have a similar cultivation level as Grand Elder? Yes, indeed. If it weren't for the martial arts convention showing traces of the Shindao sect, I wouldn't have known that the Shindao sect's orthodoxy has also been passed down. If I'm not mistaken, he's probably an old man from the Shindao sect. But, senior sister, I've never heard that the Shindao sect has a flying technique that's easy to cultivate. Only the Heavenly Dragon sect's flying technique is a different path, and it is possible to achieve great success in the situation where the Heaven and Earth Yuan Qi is annihilated. The other sects are the same, and if we can't master the flying technique, then the Godly Saber sect's people can't either. Forget it. Let's go down. Who cares who he is? Yao Mountain isn't far ahead. Once the Immortal Mansion appears, how can he not show up? We'll just kill him when the time comes. The three of them descended from the sky. Nanjing, he looked into the distance and asked, Peacock, is there any news from the Misty School? Sect leader, according to the latest news, Hu Yuni has led 2,000 disciples from the Misty School back to the ethereal heights. Not only is Zhang Qingyue's direct disciple, Shui Tiantian, but also the former deputy leader of the Misty School, Shui Yuping. It's just that, for some reason, the ethereal heights is now heavily guarded. Ming Qing, Gao Kunheng, and the others can't even spread the news. This news was spread by the people outside the ethereal heights. Hee, I didn't expect Zhang Xiaohu to be so talented. I couldn't see it at all before. It's good that the Misty School is so strict. We don't know about it, and the Righteous Alliance doesn't know either. We still have Ming Qing, Gao Kunheng, and thousands of disciples from the Wuming Hall. Moreover, thousands of disciples from the Righteous Alliance have been captured by Ming Qing. Presumably, they are now in his hands. Even if Zhang Xiaohu has 3 heads and 6 arms, he can't escape from Ming Qing's hands. As for Hu Yuni, he brought Shui Yuping and Shui Tiantian. It's obvious that he's here to force Zhang Xiaohu to abdicate. How can he tolerate that? I want them to bite each other so that Ming Qing and Gao Kunheng can sit back and reap the benefits. Sect leader, you are wise and far-sighted. Peacock was convinced. However, the matter of the Yaoshan Immortal Abode is so serious. Yet the Misty School didn't send out any troops. They only sent out some spies to gather some information. Now that the Yaoshan Immortal Abode is occupied by various sects, the Misty School has lost its geographical advantage. Peacock, think about it. If Zhang Xiaohu really controls the Misty School, leaving Ming Qing and Gao Kunheng aside, when he sees the Immortal Abode, the magical treasure of the Immortal Abode, do you think he'll be tempted? Peacock smiled. Zhang Xiaohu is neither a saint nor a deity. Why wouldn't he be tempted? He's now a pawn of the fragrance cult. All he thinks about is how to escape the fate of being controlled by our sect leader. If he can get the Immortal Abode and the magical treasure, of course, he'll have the strength to contend with our sect leader. This kind of temptation, he should be more eager than other people in the martial arts world. But the Misty Heights didn't make any moves at all. Doesn't this show that it's not Zhang Xiaohu's idea? Nanjing, he smiled. It's not that Hu Yuni involved him. To resist foreign aggression, one must first stabilize the internal situation, so he has no time to fend for himself. It's just that Ming Qing and Gao Kunheng didn't agree to let the Misty School's disciples get involved without our orders. Don't you think so? Our sect leader's arrangements are marvelous. I have only one word in my heart: admiration. Peacock smiled. Our sect leader, this immortal abode. Is it really something that everyone in the martial arts world wants? Chinchin suddenly asked. Of course. There are many treasures in the immortal abode. Maybe we can even find some primordial stones. Won't our fragrance cult's orthodoxy be passed down? Nun Jing, he smiled. Will the saintess of the Tenryu sect come? Nun Jingyi's face darkened, and she didn't answer. Peacock glanced and whispered, since Sakura is here, maybe the saintess will come too. By the way, senior sister, did Rin Xiaoyao go to the Tenryu sect in the end? This guy is really stupid. He even hugged the saintess of the Tenryu sect. This luck. TSK. I really can't describe it. Peacock glanced and whispered again. Who knows if he went or not? According to my disciple's report, he disappeared after leaving Dianchi Lake. Maybe he went to Rejuvenation Valley. Impossible. Chun shook his head. Zixia is better than Ye Qinyu in both appearance and background. Why would Ren Xiaoyao do something like that? This guy is really cunning. By the way, senior sister, do you think Ren Xiaoyao will come to Yaoshan? Chin asked. Peacock was flustered and frowned slightly. How would I know? However, he only has great strength. Now he has learned some skills with a stick, even if he can be accepted in the martial arts world, but how can he enter the eyes of the big sects? I'm afraid he won't come. That's right. This guy knows how to seek advantages and avoid disadvantages. In such a dangerous place, he can only hide far away. Chin smiled. What Chin didn't know was that the Ren Xiaoyao she was talking about was now hiding behind a huge rock in a valley dozens of miles behind them, gasping for breath. Please vote monthly. Please vote for recommendation. Please collect. Please tip. Thank you. If you like this work, please come Chidian. Come to vote for recommendation and monthly. Chapter 1141. Motherfucker. Zhang Xiaohua almost never cursed. Today, he couldn't help but curse. His heart felt slightly better. I really didn't expect that I really was sitting in a well and looking at the sky. I really am a toad who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Zhang Xiaohua also felt depressed. He originally thought that his cultivation of the path of immortality was enough to move unhindered in Jianghu. That was why he casually revealed his true identity in front of the Misty School, who knew that not only the three extremely powerful seniors between the clouds and the water, but also the cult of fragrance, which Zhang Xiaohua had stayed in for a long time and made a mess inside. Unexpectedly, two Shirtai who were even more powerful than the old beggar Jing popped out. What was going on in this world? Before, he couldn't even see half of them. Just one immortal's mansion was enough to attract all the path of immortality experts. Now that he thought about it, Zhang Xiaohua felt a wave of fear. Fortunately, when he was fooling around in the cult of fragrance, he was afraid that Sherdai Jing would find out. He was very careful and didn't attract the attention of Shu Qing and Shu Jia. Otherwise, the cult of fragrance had a formation that isolated the outside world. The two Shirtai could also borrow the power of the formation. Presumably, even if Zhang Xiaohua practiced the flying technique to the extreme, he still wouldn't be able to escape the pursuit of the two Shirtai. Just between the clouds and the water and the cult of fragrance are so powerful. Then what about the Dalan Temple? Just Master Changsheng and the great Master Changgung alone, I am not their match. Not to mention that they are like these two sects, with a few more great masters coming out. I will definitely run for my life. Right? There's no need to say anything else. As long as the sweeping old monk of the Sutra Pavilion comes out, I will run as far as I can. Alas, this Jianghu, the water is really too deep. Zhang Xiaohua finally breathed a sigh of relief. The path of immortality has so many hidden dragons and crouching tigers. Then what about the Tenryu sect, which is known as the #1 sect in Jianghu? Other than the world's #1 Sakura, is there also the previous generation Sakura or Garuda? If any of them come out, not to mention even the cult of fragrance will avoid them. Forget it, forget it. First, I need to regulate my chi circulation. After a while, I need to confirm Chu's news. I'll wait until the 7 disciples of the Beidou school gather, and find a place with beautiful sceneries. Wait until the Beidou school has, shoot, find a place. Wait when my Beidou school, S is after I school. I will find a. In just a moment, the vital energy in her meridians had been replenished. Zhang Xiaohua made a gesture with her hands and turned invisible. Then, she soared into the sky and headed straight for the Dragon Mountain. Because she was afraid of encountering another expert of the path of immortality, Zhang Xiaohua didn't dare to release her divine sense too much. She only flew low and relied on her eyes and senses. Until half a day later, when she felt that she wouldn't encounter another expert, she released her divine sense and sped up her flight. Previously, I used the Flying Technique's concealment spell to hide my body so that others couldn't see me. Although this can't be seen by the naked eye, it can still be discovered by the divine sense. I guess the experts from between the clouds and the water and the cult of fragrance found I this way. It seems that I have to be more careful when encountering such people in the future. Zhang Xiaohua thought to herself, if only I could find a concealment spell that even the divine sense can't detect, that would be great. In the following days, Zhang Xiaohua saw fewer and fewer people of the Jianghu. At most, she would see them in 2s and 3s. It seemed that their martial arts skills were also lax. She guessed that they didn't think their martial arts skills were good enough and didn't intend to steal any treasures. They just couldn't resist the temptation of the passage to the realm of immortals. But along the way, Zhang Xiaohua didn't see Chu Zhigao and his family, nor did she see any disciples of the Misty School. Could it be that something bad has happened? Zhang Xiaohua thought back to what he had been thinking earlier. Seeing that Horned Dragon Mountain was right in front of her, Zhang Xiaohua used her divine sense to cover the entire Horned Dragon Mountain. But after looking around, she didn't see any traces of Chu Zhigao and his family except for a few people who were chopping firewood and hunting. There was also a thatched cottage that had long been burned down in the mountain. Hence, Zhang Xiaohua came to the location of Fire Dragon Immortal's cave and the place where Chu Zhigao hunted. Everything was the same as before. That's strange. Didn't Chu Zhigao return to Horned Dragon Mountain? If he was at Horned Dragon Mountain, then the thatched cottage should have been rebuilt at the place that was destroyed by the fire. But now, it still looks like it was burned down. That means that Chu Zhigao didn't return to Horned Dragon Mountain. Then, the disciples of the Misty School who came to fetch Jing must have missed him. Where could Chu Zhigao have gone? Poyang Town. Zhang Xiaohua suddenly slapped herself on the forehead and laughed. I've been thinking about Horned Dragon Mountain. Chu Zhigao's house in Horned Dragon Mountain had been burned down by the people of Jingle Parting Manor. Furthermore, the head of Jingle Parting Manor had been killed by I. If the people of Jingle Parting Manor came to look for the head of Jingle Parting Manor, they would naturally meet Chu Zhigao. By then, wouldn't Chu Zhigao be captured by them? Hence, I can't stay in Horned Dragon Mountain any longer. If Chu Zhigao went to another place and I could find him, it would naturally be Poyang Town. Sigh, if I had known earlier, I would have made it clear to the disciples of the Misty School. They would definitely return empty-handed. With that thought, Zhang Xiaohua leaped up and flew in the direction of Poyang Town. After flying for a long time, Zhang Xiaohua's heart suddenly skipped a beat. He used his divine sense to scan the area below him. Unknowingly, he was overjoyed. Poyang Town was not far ahead. On his left was the small mountain village that he had gone to look for Meng's birth. Thinking about the kind people in the small mountain village, the kind Mr. Qigong and Lady Jiao, Zhang Xiaohua's heart was filled with warmth. Back then, he didn't bring much money with him. He only left a small amount of money in the wooden house. Now that he had given all the gold, silver, and jewels he obtained from Xichui Mountain and Evil Tiger Manor to Oyen, he still had some scattered money. If he gave these to the people of the small mountain village, it would definitely be helpful to their poor lives. With that thought, Zhang Xiaohua changed his direction and flew towards the mountain range. However, following his memory, Zhang Xiaohua arrived at the mountain range. The lush forest in front of him left him dumbfounded. Is this the place? Zhang Xiaohua was extremely bewildered. Ever since he cultivated God's guidance, divine sense, he rarely got lost. But why did he get lost again today? This seems to be Lady Jio's straw house. How did it become a huge pine tree? And this should be Lady Aya's wooden house. But it has become a grassland. This is really strange. Zhang Xiaohua muttered to himself as he flew out of the forest. This is the place. Isn't the stream still here? Oh, right. Lady Aya's grave is at the top of the mountain range. So, however, when Zhang Xiaohua flew to the top of the mountain, he realized that although this place was about the same size as the graveyard, there were pine trees and strange stones. There was no grave. This is really strange. Zhang Xiaohua scratched his head and thought for a while. Then, he conjured a spell and burrowed into the ground. After a while, he emerged from the ground with a look of disappointment. Forget it. I think I got lost. There is no coffin under this ground. How can this be Lady Anya's grave? After thinking about it, Zhang Xiaohua did not want to stay any longer. He leaped into the air and began to search again. However, even if he found the ferry by the river and the cottage at the ferry, and searched back according to his memory, there was still no trace of him. No wonder the Tenryu sect couldn't find Lady Aya in this small mountain village. Back then, I was still puzzled. Now, I finally understand the reason. Could it be that there's something strange about this small mountain village? Zhang Xiaohua thought to himself. However, when he thought about it again, the villagers in the small mountain village were all so simple. There was nothing strange about it. Feeling helpless, Zhang Xiaohua went to the array where he found the money bag. There was no snow, and the outside of the array looked the same as usual. However, with Zhang Xiaohua's divine sense, there was a slight fluctuation of vital energy near the ground. It was the same place where the squirrel had drilled through and where Zhang Xiaohua had drilled into the cave. Could it be that there is something strange inside? Zhang Xiaohua thought and drilled into the array again. At this time, Zhang Xiaohua already had divine sense and didn't need to enter the cave. He just needed to scan the cave with his divine sense, and everything in it was clear to him. It was different from what Zhang Xiaohua had imagined. The cave was the same as before. There was no fluctuation of vital energy in the dark cave. Could it be that the array in this cave has something to do with the small mountain village? Which senior of the immortal Tao placed the jade letter and money bag in this cave for no reason? How did the Shirtai of the fragrant religion know about it? What does this senior have to do with the fragrant religion? Zhang Xiaohua stood in front of the cave and rubbed his chin thoughtfully. However, the immortal Tao was something from 10,000 years ago. If there was a flaw in the array in the cave, who else in this world could know about it? Karma. Even if it is a cause from 10,000 years ago, it can also cause an effect 10,000 years later. If not for this cause that I didn't know about in the past, I might never have known about it in the future. How could there be an effect of me obtaining the money bag and the jade letter? And the cause of me obtaining the money bag and the jade letter, how much effect will there be in the future? The Tao of Karma is indeed a mystery of the Tao of Heaven that is on par with the Tao of life and death. Zhang Xiaohua couldn't help but sigh. Zhang Xiaohua suddenly remembered that her dream had left the fragrant religion. She had also left the fragrant religion. The Shirtai's grave was left in the fragrant religion. She had sworn that she would personally kill the person who killed the Shirtai. Now that she had no clue, how could she live up to her oath? Perhaps after the Beidou school is built, I will have to make another trip to the fragrant religion. Zhang Xiaohua thought to herself. Chapter 1142. After coming out of the cave, Zhang Xiaohua did not delay any longer. She followed the path she had taken earlier and headed straight for Poyang Town. However, when she flew over the mountain range, she inadvertently used her divine sense to scan the lonely mountain temple. A strange expression appeared on her face, and then she was furious. She reached into her clothes and took out Chasing Dream. With a wave of her hand, the small sword shot into the mountain temple like lightning. This small mountain temple that had an affinity with Zhang Xiaohua was not as quiet as it used to be. At this time, there were 6 people squeezed inside. It was not appropriate to say that they were squeezed. It was more like a man and a woman were forced into a corner of the mountain temple by the 4 men in front of them. The woman's face was pale, and she covered her chest with her hand. She was lying in the corner on a pile of straw where Zhang Xiaohua had slept. The woman's face was very beautiful, and it was somewhat similar to Chiu Tong's. However, at this moment, Ru Dai's green eyebrows were tightly knitted together. Her watery eyes were slightly protruding, and her small cherry mouth was also open. She kept inhaling with all her might, but the air she exhaled was far less than the air she inhaled. That woman seemed to be on the verge of death. Miss May, the man stood in front of the woman, as if he was helping to fend off the 4 men in front of him. However, the folding fan in his hand and his thin and weak arms showed that he was only a weak scholar. How could he withstand the shining swords? From time to time, he would turn back to look at the woman with concern. The man held the folding fan in front of his chest and scolded, "Ew, you bully the weak, bandits. In order to escape, we ran all the way here. Why won't you let us go?" A lean man stood at the side with his hands behind his back. He looked at the scholar and said coldly, "You are Li Jinfeng, right? You must know the background of this woman. Since we were able to chase you all the way from Nanjiao Town to here, then we must have the Mei family's treasure. You have been running all the way here, so the Mei family's treasure must be nearby, right? Look, Mei Qinglian is already dead. Why don't you hurry up and take out the treasure map? Seeing that I have the same surname as Miss Mei, I will spare your lives." That scholar was none other than the righteous Li Jinfeng. Li Jinfeng's expression changed when he heard the man, surnamed Mei's words. He berated, "I've only met Miss Mei by chance. I only know that Miss Mei's family suffered a great calamity and had no choice but to escape from Nanjiao Town. How could I possibly know about a treasure map?" "Young Master Li, you're being disloyal by saying that." A fat man next to him said, "You've been taking care of Miss Mei along the way. You look no different from a married couple. Why are you saying such things now? If Miss Mei hadn't said anything to you, would you have accompanied her for so long and run all the way from the north to the south?" What do you mean? From what you're saying, if Miss Mei doesn't have a wealthy family, I won't take care of a lonely and weak girl like her." Shopkeeper Liu, don't compare your jade artifact shop to this scholar. He has a noble character and will help any girl he sees. That man, surnamed Mei, glanced at Li Jinfeng and laughed. But when he helps, he'll be helping a poor young lady from a wealthy family. If he didn't run into us, wouldn't he already have a fortune of tens of millions of strings? Old Mei, look at you. What do you think the words coming out of your mouth sound like? What's the difference between what I said? This old Mei and Shopkeeper Liu were actually the 2 night walkers that Zhang Xiaohua had met when she was sleeping in the mountain temple. "Sirs," the other person said with a frown, "Mei Qinglian doesn't seem to have long to live. Shouldn't we save her first? Otherwise, if we can't complete the task the Banner Lord gave us, we won't be able to explain ourselves when we return." "What? Brothers, are you worried about my methods?" Old Mei sneered. "Although we're not familiar with the brothers from Shizue Mountain, we're all under the Lord's leadership. We've received your message and know the importance of this matter. That's why we put down many things to come and help. If you're not happy, we'll leave now." No, the other man quickly said. "What are you talking about, Sir Mei? You're the Lord in charge of the carriage and horses. We're just strong men running errands. How can we have a problem with you? Zhao Hong just wants to finish this task quickly. After all, we've been following this Mei Qinglian for a long time. If we don't quickly take out the Mei family's legendary treasure, our senior brother from Shizue Mountain won't be able to explain to the commander." Wu Yuantong, I don't want to criticize you. This Mei Qinglian does this every day. Did you see that accident last time? Moreover, this adulterous couple has been fooling around all along the way. I'm afraid they've already told that man about the treasure. If Miss Mei is gone, we'll find young Master Li. Anyway, this place is close to our home. Let's take the treasure home directly. Your senior brother's task will be completed, and my lord will also be rewarded. Don't you think it's a win-win situation? Yes, we'll listen to shopkeeper Lou's instructions. The two men looked at each other and nodded. All right, kid, my patience is limited. You'd better tell me the location of the treasure so that you won't have to suffer some physical pain. In the early years, there was a martial arts family nearby. Yes, their surname was Tan. However, I don't think you know that there was a young man in the family who was as stubborn as you. However, Grandpa shaved off his entire body and used a small knife to make 18,000 small cuts. Then, he smeared honey on the wounds and threw him into the sun. Then, he caught 100,000 little ants to play with him. In just the time it took to brew a cup of tea, this little brat had confessed everything. Do you want to play with him too? When Li Jinfeng heard this, his whole body trembled. Then, he clenched his teeth and stiffened his neck. A soldier can be killed, but not humiliated. You're so cruel. There will be retribution. Retribution? Young Master Li, you'd better think about whether you can survive today. Shopkeeper Lu was a little impatient. He took a step forward and stood in front of Li Jinfeng. He raised his hand and pressed on Li Jinfeng's major acupoint. Li Jinfeng fell down. An unbearable feeling welled up in his heart. Immediately, Li Jinfeng's face turned pale and his teeth creaked. On his forehead, bean-sized beads of sweat slowly dripped down along his temples. Young Master Li, how do you feel? Shopkeeper Lu asked coldly. However, before young Master Li could reply, a white light flashed and pierced Shopkeeper Lu's throat. Shopkeeper Lu didn't notice it at all. When he was about to speak again, a stream of blood flowed out from the wound on his throat. Shopkeeper Lu only felt the pain now. When he tried to cover the wound with his hand, his whole body went limp and he fell to the ground. This is... The youngest Mei was stunned. He blinked his eyes, as if he hadn't recovered from the shock of Shopkeeper Lu's death. The sword light turned back as if it had a mind of its own and flew toward his chest. Flying sword. The youngest Mei was a knowledgeable person. He immediately saw through the mystery. Unfortunately, he could only see through it and couldn't block it. The flying sword flashed and pierced through his armpit. Run! Zhao Hong and Wu Yuantong, who were holding their swords and sabers, suddenly realized something and shouted, "Run!" However, before they could run out of the door of the mountain god temple, two flying swords had pierced through their chests, and they fell to the ground. For a moment, the noisy mountain god temple only had the creaking sound of Li Jinfeng gnashing his teeth in pain and the breathing of the four dying people. Suddenly, a green figure flew in from the door of the mountain god temple and appeared in front of Li Jinfeng. It was Zhang Xiaohua, who had rushed over in a hurry. When she landed on the ground, Zhang Xiaohua pressed Li Jinfeng's acupuncture point without hesitation. Sigh. Li Jinfeng heaved a sigh of relief, as if he had just put down a heavy burden on his shoulders. He raised his head slightly, as if he wanted to thank her. However, when he saw the familiar face, Li Jinfeng was stunned. Then, he struggled to get up and speak, but his body was so weak that he couldn't move at all. Young Master Li, don't worry. We'll talk later. Zhang Xiaohua nodded at him, and then looked at Mei Qinglian, who was behind Li Jinfeng. Zhang Xiaohua smiled bitterly when she saw that Mei Qinglian's face was similar to Qiu Tong's. She placed her finger on Mei Qinglian's wrist to check her pulse, and shook her head slightly. Then, she transferred a strand of vital energy to her. It was obvious that Mei Qinglian's chest was heaving less and her mouth was opening smaller. Her face was slightly flushed. Thank you, Immortal Elder, Mei Qinglian said gratefully when she saw the sword light and Zhang Xiaohua descending from the sky. Do you have any last words? Zhang Xiaohua nodded. If possible, I can help you. Really? Immortal Elder? Mei Qinglian's eyes lit up. She was puzzled at first, and then said hurriedly, am from Pingyang City's Nanjiao town. My surname is Mei. My name is Qinglian. Mei Qinglian? Zhang Xiaohua was stunned. She seemed to have heard of this name before. My father is a famous philanthropist in Nanjiao Town. But Mei Qinglian's voice became weaker. At this moment, Li Jinfeng had already walked over. When he heard Zhang Xiaohua asking for Mei Qinglian's last words, he said softly, "Miss Mei, you don't have to say anything else. I already know. Do you mean that you want this immortal elder to help you take revenge?" Mei Qinglian's eyes flashed with gratitude. She looked at Li Jinfeng and then at Zhang Xiaohua. She nodded vigorously. "I hope that immortal elder will be merciful and go to Shizue Mountain, save my father and the rest from the bandits who harmed the people." Shizue Mountain? Zhang Xiaohua was enlightened. She immediately thought of what she had heard in Shizue Mountain. Wasn't this Mei Qinglian the miss of the Mei family that Fort Master Qi had mentioned? At that moment, Zhang Xiaohua did not hesitate. She squeezed out a smile and said, "Miss Mei, do you have any other last words? This matter, I have already completed it more than a month ago. I have killed all the bandits in Shizue Mountain." Mei Qinglian's face lit up. She asked, "Then my father, what about him? Please cast a monthly vote. Please cast a recommendation vote. Please collect, please tip. Thank you. If you like this work, you are welcome to vote monthly and recommend at Qidian. Come." Chapter 1143. When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, she looked at Mei Qinglian's face, which had a last burst of energy. She smiled and said, "At that time, I saved many people from the prison. As for whether your father was inside, I do not know." "Very well, thank you, immortal elder." Mei Qinglian smiled and turned to look at Li Jinfeng. Her eyes seemed to be filled with tenderness as she said, "Li Gongzi, you are a rare gentleman. In this world, this concubine only regrets that I did not meet you earlier. I hope that you can and your sweetheart be married to each other and grow old together. This scarf, just treat it as a wedding gift from little sister to." As Mei Qinglian spoke, she reached for the handkerchief hanging from her waist with great effort. Then, she lifted it up forcefully, wanting to pass it to Li Jinfeng. However, the moment she lifted it up a little, the light in her eyes disappeared. Her hand also drooped down weakly. She could see that there was no breath coming from her mouth and nose. Miss Mei, Li Jinfeng was a little emotional as he shouted, "Gongzi Li, Miss Mei has already passed." Zhang Xiaohua patted Li Jinfeng's shoulder and softly comforted him. She then stood up and looked at the already dead shopkeeper Liu and the other 3 men who were barely breathing. She walked over and did not hesitate to use the bewitching finger on them. After a while, Zhang Xiaohua laughed coldly. She stretched out her hand and broke the necks of Mei Qinglian, Zhao Hong, and Wu Yuantong. This Mei Qinglian was actually a subordinate of the Righteous Alliance and was in charge of sending messages. There were also spies from the Righteous Alliance in the Galloping Carriage and Storm Carriage Company. Many of the Righteous Alliance's messages were also sent through the Carriage Company. Why am I so unlucky? I was just sending a letter home, and I just happened to meet a disciple of the Righteous Alliance. So what if I met him? I just had to meet the Righteous Alliance, who needed a huge amount of money. Damn it. When did I's character become so unbearable? However, Zhang Xiaohua immediately rubbed her nose and said self-mockingly, "Perhaps my character has become even more heaven-defying. After destroying Shizue Mountain and Evil Tiger Villa, I kept most of the gold and silver that the Righteous Alliance wanted in my belt. Sigh, this Miss Mei is really pitiful. Originally, she had already escaped the calamity of being exterminated, but because she had the Mei family's hidden treasures, she was targeted by Zhao Hong and Wu Yuantong from the Righteous Alliance. However, it's also strange. Why didn't the 2 of them capture Miss Mei in Nanjiao Town? Why not just directly send her to Shizue Mountain? And of course, such a rare, hard-working attitude. If it wasn't for the fact that those 2 people died so quickly, I would have asked them properly. That's not right. The youngest Mei and shopkeeper Liu were not invited by the 2 of them. It was because the youngest Mei found out about their whereabouts through the disciples of the Storm Carriage Company. That was why he brought shopkeeper Liu along. I understand now. Zhao Hong and Wu Yuantong also had the intention of pocketing the treasures. At least, they didn't have the intention of handing over all of the treasures. Birds die in pursuit of food, and men die in pursuit of wealth. The ancients really didn't lie. Zhang Xiaohua finally understood the crux of the matter. Xiaohua. Li Jinfeng, who was at the side, saw Zhang Xiaohua doing many strange things. He also heard the words of the three people before they died. When he saw Zhang Xiaohua raise her head from her deep thoughts, he asked, "Are you the Zhang Xiaohua that I know?" Zhang Xiaohua asked curiously, "Why are you only asking now? What were you doing just now?" I didn't react just now. But now that I think about it, you actually used some kind of hidden weapon to kill all four of them. I feel you can't possibly have such a high level of martial arts. Moreover, there were four of them. You didn't even show up, and they were all killed? Li Jinfeng's eyes suddenly lit up as he said with a smile, "Don't tell me that you are the legendary Sword Immortal." Zhang Xiaohua rolled her eyes and said, "Young Master Li, were you accompanying young Miss Mei and talking too much? How can I be a Sword Immortal?" "I think so too, but..." Li Jinfeng nodded. He was in so much pain that he didn't notice that Zhang Xiaohua flew in. "At most, I am an Immortal Dao expert," Zhang Xiaohua said with a smile. "Immortal Dao? What is that?" Li Jinfeng asked curiously. "Let's talk about it later." Zhang Xiaohua waved her hand and said, "Let's first bury young Miss Mei. But you have already saved young Miss Mei. How can we bury her without permission? It's better to take her body back." Li Jinfeng disagreed with Zhang Xiaohua. "Alas, young Master Li, the bandits of Shitue Mountain are ruthless. How can there be any survivors in their hands? What I said to young Miss Mei just now was just to comfort her. No way, the bandits of Shitue Mountain are still alive." Li Jinfeng was a little indignant again. "Xiaohua, you promised young Miss Mei that you must kill all the bandits of Shitue Mountain when you go back." Zhang Xiaohua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She said, "Of course, I killed all the bandits and only left these two people. But young Miss Mei, I didn't see her at all. There were no survivors in the dungeon of Shitue Mountain, and there were hundreds of corpses in front of the gate of the mountain stronghold. Some were old and some were young. Young Miss Mei should be among them. Oh, by the way, it seems that young Miss Mei died before she reached Shitue Mountain. Her body was abandoned in the wild." "Alas, I see." Young Miss Mei was a well-known good person in Nanzhao Town. She actually fell into such a state. Then, as you said, bury young Miss Mei here. Well, okay, wait a moment. Zhang Xiaohua nodded and went out again. After a while, she came back with a huge coffin. "Where did you get this?" Li Jinfeng was dumbfounded. He wanted to bury young Miss Mei properly, but the mountain was very high. It was very difficult for them to climb up the mountain. It was very difficult to take the body down or the coffin up, so he didn't tell Zhang Xiaohua. "Don't ask. See where the feng shui is good. I'll do it, okay." Li Jinfeng looked at Mei Qinglian's body, who was smiling, and sighed. He went out of the temple and found a place not long after. It didn't take long for Zhang Xiaohua to find the swords of Zhao Hong and the others. He dug a large pit and buried Mei Qinglian in the coffin. Looking at Mei Qinglian's small grave, Li Jinfeng bowed and said, "Young Miss Mei, you and I met by chance. I wanted to kill the bandits, but I was powerless. You and I have been running for our lives, and we can be considered friends. I am partly responsible for you being buried here. If there is a chance in the future, I will send your coffin back to Nanzhao Town. Young Miss Mei, you have taken your revenge, so you can leave easily. I hope you can live a happy life in the underworld and don't have to worry about the bandits anymore." Zhang Xiaohua whispered, "Young Master Li, young Miss Mei was born sick in the heart and lungs. Even if she didn't run for her life, I guess she won't live for more than 3 years. You don't have any burden." "Alas, I know this. Young Miss Mei also told me, but I always felt very powerless all the way," Li Jinfeng said sadly. "Strange, young Master Li. Young Miss Mei was chased by the bandits of Shitue Mountain because of the Mei family's treasure. Why did you get involved for no reason?" Zhang Xiaohua asked curiously. "Let's go back to Lu Town. I'll tell you slowly along the way." "Oh, I still have something to do in Poyang Town. Let's go together. When it's done, we'll go back to Lu Town together. Zhang Xiaohua replied. It's all right. As long as you're with me, what am I afraid of? Li Jinfeng said with a smile. With Zhang Xiaohua following them, it was indeed very convenient. Descending the mountain was also very easy. When they encountered a steep and difficult place, Zhang Xiaohua reached out and lifted Li Jinfeng up. Then, he directly jumped over. At the foot of the mountain, the two of them hailed a carriage and headed towards Poyang Town. In the carriage, Li Jinfeng told her about his encounter with Mei Qinglian. It was also fate. Li Jinfeng was visiting a friend in Nanzhao Town. He met Mei Qinglian, who had just returned from visiting a friend. When she saw the drastic change in her family, she immediately jumped off the carriage and ran away without greeting the maids and servants. Shitsue Mountain had placed the Mei family as their main focus and had arranged many disciples around the Mei family. When they saw a luxurious carriage coming to the Mei family, they immediately stopped it. However, when they found that young Miss Mei was not in the carriage, they quickly looked around. Young Miss Mei was like a headless fly. When she saw Li Jinfeng's carriage, she jumped in without thinking. Coincidentally, Li Jinfeng was the only one in the carriage. After leaving the town, young Miss Mei found a secluded place to get off the carriage. Li Jinfeng naturally reminded young Miss Mei about her safety. Young Miss Mei saw Li Jinfeng's refined manner in the carriage and knew that he was a gentleman. She couldn't help but feel dependent on him and quietly told him about her family situation. The Mei family was also a big family in Nanzhao. Li Jinfeng had heard of Minister Mei's good reputation from her friends. When he heard about the Mei family's misfortune, even though he didn't know who did it, he was furious and felt pity for them. However, Li Jinfeng didn't let his anger get to his head. He knew how serious this matter was, and he couldn't bring the disaster to his family. Therefore, he discussed with Mei Qinglian and decided to settle down in a small mountain village first. They would make plans after finding out the details. Therefore, the two of them pretended to be an eloping couple and hid in a mountain village first. Li Jinfeng returned to Nanzhao Town to inquire about the news. When Mei Qinglian got the news that her whole family had been kidnapped by Shitsue Shan, she immediately knew Shitsue Shan's intention. She had the idea of using the treasures at home to rescue her family. But how could she know any Jianghu people? She could only ask Li Jinfeng for help. Li Jinfeng knew Zhang Xiaohu and the entrance to Ethereal Heights. However, at that time, it was unknown whether Zhang Xiaohu was alive or dead, and the Misty School had become the Righteous Alliance. Li Jinfeng naturally didn't know what to do. In the end, Mei Qinglian remembered that Minister Mei seemed to have mentioned that the Mei family had some relations with a martial arts family surnamed Tan. She also remembered the name of the Tan family's residence. Therefore, she decided to go to the Tan family to seek help. Please vote monthly, recommend, bookmark, and tip. Chapter 1144. The Tan family's Misty Rain Town was close to Poyang Town, but it was far from Nanzhao Town. Li Jinfeng hesitated when he heard this, but he couldn't bring Mei Qinglian back to her home in Lu Town, nor could he avenge her. He could only accompany Mei Qinglian all the way to the south. There was a saying in ancient times, "A scholar is useless." Li Jinfeng felt that this was wrong. That day, Zhang Xiaohua accompanied Nie Qinyu from 1,000 miles away. That was because Zhang Xiaohua knew martial arts and had the ability to protect himself and Nie Qinyu. That was already a chivalrous act. But compared to Li Jinfeng, she was far inferior. Li Jinfeng was only a weak scholar with a weak body. Going to Misty Rain Town alone was already a test for him, not to mention bringing Mei Qinglian along. The hardships along the way couldn't be described in detail. Li Jinfeng's bravery had already moved Mei Qinglian, but she knew her body's condition and her current situation, so she didn't dare to reveal her feelings. Moreover, the two talked along the way and didn't hide anything. They already knew each other well. Mei Qinglian also knew that Li Jinfeng already had a girl named Qiu Tong in his heart. But because fate made fools of people This girl went to the south a few years ago. Now, it was unknown whether she was alive or dead. Even Li Jinfeng didn't hesitate to tell Mei Qinglian that she was somewhat similar to Qiu Tong. And it was because of this similarity that he helped her so deeply. Li Jinfeng's frankness didn't make Mei Qinglian angry. Instead, she appreciated Li Jinfeng even more. She felt that Li Jinfeng was a magnanimous gentleman. The two went all the way to the south, carefully covering their tracks, thinking that they had escaped from Shi Chui Mountain. But what they did not know was that this Shi Chui Mountain was not the same Shi Chui Mountain. That day, the horse carriage that they had taken from Nanzhao had been a galloping horse carriage. Some of the Righteous Alliance's disciples had already reported their whereabouts to the disciples sent by Shi Chui Mountain. As they fled for their lives, they had not been able to shake off the Righteous Alliance's pursuit. It was not until they were near Misty Rain Town that Mei Qinglian found out that the Tan family had been exterminated several years ago that she began to panic. Then, Zhao Hong, who was following them, also felt that something was wrong. He knew that these two people were not looking for treasures, so he was about to show up and capture them. However, at this time, the news of their following also attracted the attention of the youngest Mei and shopkeeper Lu. They stopped them and asked for details. Li Jinfeng and Mei Qinglian took this opportunity to escape far away. They wanted to hide in the wilderness to avoid the pursuit of the Righteous Alliance. However, they were only ordinary people. How could they outrun the youngest, Mei's Qin Gong expert? It wasn't easy for them to run to this mountain temple, but they were still easily caught up. Mei Qinglian's body couldn't take it anymore as she had been drifting all this time. She was on the verge of death even before old Mei interrogated her. "Sai, young masterly, I really admire you." Hearing this, Zhang Xiaohua really didn't know what to say. Li Jinfeng couldn't even protect himself, yet he still wanted to protect a weak girl he didn't know. This, if Mei Qinglian didn't resemble Qiu Tong, Zhang Xiaohua wouldn't have been able to find a reason for Li Jinfeng to risk his life like this. There are things that a real man should do, and there are things that he shouldn't do. Since I've encountered such an outrageous matter, even if I have to pay with my life, I'll still take care of it. Even if she doesn't look like elder sister Qiu Tong at all. Li Jinfeng nodded without hesitation. That's right. If you don't care, I don't care, and no one else, then how can there be justice and conscience in this world? Sai, I've learned something, young masterly. Zhang Xiaohua suddenly felt that this Li Jinfeng wasn't just his teacher who taught him how to read, he also had a lot to learn from him in terms of how to conduct himself in life. "Oh yes, young masterly, I have something to tell you." "What is it?" Li Jinfeng asked, but then he realized something. "Is Xiao who still alive?" Zhang Xiaohua nodded and smiled. "Of course my second brother is alive, but I want to tell you something else." "Something else?" Li Jinfeng was stunned, and then his face flushed red. He looked out the window and said softly, "Qiu Tong, is she still alive?" "Ha, yes." Zhang Xiaohua almost clapped her hands and laughed. "My second brother has returned to the ethereal heights in Pingyang City, and elder sister Qiu Tong has also returned to the Huanxi Mountain Villa with O Yin. If you want to see her, you can go to the Huanxi Mountain Villa." Li Jinfeng didn't feel happy when he heard this. Instead, he looked melancholy. After a while, seeing that Zhang Xiaohua didn't understand, he said, "I'm just a weak scholar. I'm hot-blooded, but I don't have the strength to trust a chicken. How can I be worthy of Qiu Tong? I think Qiu Tong has already found a strong martial artist. I can only wish her well. Young masterly, look at how jealous you are. Didn't I tell you it's something to be happy about? If elder sister Qiu Tong was already married, I wouldn't have told you. She's still waiting to get married. Forget it, forget it. After all, they're two different kinds of people. Why we have to squeeze them together?" Li Jinfeng was still shy. Zhang Xiaohua was a little angry. "You obviously like Qiu Tong, and you're willing to risk your life for Mei Qinglian, who looks like her. Then why didn't you tell Qiu Tong? If she doesn't like you, then so be it. But what if she likes you too? Won't you miss out on a marriage for nothing? Will you have to bear a grudge for the rest of your life? Even if you go and see her again, you won't be wronged for liking her, Zhang Xiaohua treated Li Jinfeng as her elder brother. She said everything in her heart. Then, she looked outside and smiled. We've just arrived at Poyang Town. It's still very far from Pingyang City. Think about it. Zhang Xiaohua had already entered Poyang Town 3 times. She was very familiar with it. She used her divine perception to scan the town. She didn't panic when she couldn't find any trace of Chu Zhigao. Chu Zhigao had been in the martial world for a long time. In addition, he had the experience of being plotted against previously. If he hid in Poyang Town, it wouldn't be easy for others to find him. However, Zhang Xiaohua wasn't in a hurry. When Chu Jing was mentioned at Huanxi Mountain Villa, he felt uneasy. After rescuing Li Jinfeng at the Mountain Deity Temple, he no longer had the same feeling. Perhaps his uneasiness wasn't because of Chu Jing, but because of Li Jinfeng. But since that was the case, Chu Jing was safe, and there was no need to worry too much. Hence, Zhang Xiaohua found an inn and stayed there. She released her divine perception every day and searched around Poyang Town, hoping to find traces of Chu Zhigao. Although he didn't know why Zhang Xiaohua came to Poyang Town, Li Jinfeng didn't ask much. After listening to Zhang Xiaohua's words these days, he thought deeply and didn't disturb Zhang Xiaohua. Early in the morning, when Zhang Xiaohua released her divine perception, she saw Chu Zhigao quietly walking out a low house on the east side of Poyang Town. He carried a bucket on his shoulder and seemed to be going outside to fetch water. "Haha," Zhang Xiaohua laughed and said, "I knew that you would show up sooner or later. Even if you don't come out to buy things, you can't not fetch water, right?" Zhang Xiaohua called Li Jinfeng and went straight out of the inn to Chu Zhigao's small courtyard on the east side. This was an extremely remote place. The walls of the courtyard weren't high, and the house inside was low. Zhang Xiaohua walked to the door and didn't hold back. She shouted loudly, "Brother Chu, I'm here to find you. Come out quickly." When Chu Zhigao heard the familiar voice, he quickly opened the door and stuck his head out. When he saw Zhang Xiaohua, he couldn't help but smile and said, "Ren Xiaoxia, why are you here so soon?" Zhang Xiaohua was stunned. When did you think I would come?" "Hee, I thought you would come in 2 years," Chu Zhigao said with a smile. When Zhang Xiaohua just introduced Li Jinfeng to Chu Zhigao, a cheerful figure ran out from the small courtyard. When he saw Zhang Xiaohua, he immediately knelt down. It was Chu Jing. He even shouted, "Disciple greets master." This time, Zhang Xiaohua didn't refuse. She nodded and said, "Get up. Master came here specially to find you." Hearing the change in Zhang Xiaohua's tone, Chu Zhigao was overjoyed. At this time, Chu Zhigao's mother also came out. Chu Zhigao shouted, "Mother!" Ren Xiaoxia finally accepted Jing as his disciple. "Really? This is true?" When Chu Zhigao's mother heard this, she almost couldn't believe her ears. That day, Zhang Xiaohua only said to wait for the right time. But when would the time be right? This was a big matter that she had always been brooding about. She never thought that just how long had it been. Zhang Xiaohua actually relented. "Ren Xiaoxia, could it be that he found the place to open the sect?" Chu Zhigao's mother probed. "No, not yet. Plans can't keep up with changes. The previous plans were all inappropriate. We still need to plan again." Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, "However, opening the sect is opening the sect. Accepting disciples is accepting disciples. I have already accepted 6 disciples. Chu Jing is the last one. My sect already has the Big Dipper 7 Star Lords. Thank you, Ren Xiaoxia. No, thank you, Immortal Master, for your mercy. Quick, Jing, aren't you going to greet your master?" Chu Zhigao's mother was so happy that she was about to cry. "There's no need. Jing has already paid his respects. When the sect opens in the future, I'll let them do it again." Zhang Xiaohua waved her hand and smiled. Then, the group entered the courtyard. Chu Zhigao took out the tea and other things and said embarrassedly, "In order to avoid being harassed by others, I didn't dare to stay on Dragon Mountain anymore. That's why I brought my mother and Jing to move here. This place is really simple and crude. I hope Immortal Master can understand." "Haha, it's okay." Zhang Xiaohua waved her hand and said, "You can pack up and follow me to Pingyang City." Chu Zhigao was overjoyed. He stood up and said, "I'll pack up right away." When will Immortal Master be leaving? Oh, take your time. I still have some worldly affairs to attend to. However, I'll be back in a few days. Young Master Li is Ai's best friend. I'm afraid that something might happen to him if he stayed in the inn. So I brought him here. Please take care of him. Li Jinfeng followed Zhang Xiaohua here. He felt as if he was floating in the clouds and didn't know what they were talking about. Now that he heard himself mentioned, he immediately cupped his hands and bowed. Sorry for the trouble. Please cast a monthly vote. Please cast a recommendation vote. Please collect. Please tip. Thank you. Chapter 1145. Once he heard that Li Jinfeng was Zhang Xiaohua's best friend, how could Chu Zhigao not be respectful? He immediately stood up and bowed again. After Li Jinfeng returned the greeting, he thought for a moment and said to Zhang Xiaohua, Xiaohua. But he suddenly remembered that Chu Zhigao had called Zhang Xiaohua Run Xiaoxia. Didn't that mean that he immediately shut his mouth? Chu Zhigao and his mother were stunned. Then they lowered their eyebrows, as if they didn't know what was going on. Zhang Xiaohua was attentive and had already noticed. She smiled and said, Brother Chu, my real name is Zhang Xiaohua. Rin Xiaoyao is just another identity of mine. I didn't mean to hide it. Please forgive me. It's nothing. Immortal Master is my savior and my son's teacher. I don't dare to think too much. Chu Zhigao replied hurriedly. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and didn't say anything. Li Jinfeng continued, Xiaohua, I wonder, where are you going? If it's on the way, why don't we go together? Zhang Xiaohua thought for a moment and smiled. Didn't I tell young Master Li a few days ago? Because I sent a letter home in Macho City, I got into a lot of trouble. Didn't I ask the youngest Mei in the Mountain Deity Temple? I have a rough understanding of the situation of the Righteous Alliance's carriage companies. Although Old Mei only gave me a verbal account, and I don't know who he is, but I must make a trip to the carriage company in Sorrow City and eliminate all the disciples of the Righteous Alliance in one fell swoop. Only then can I vent the hatred in my heart. Is that so? Normally, Li Jinfeng would have persuaded Zhang Xiaohua not to complain for fear of hurting the innocent. But after more than a month of running for his life, Li Jinfeng also knew that violence had to be met with violence. He nodded slightly and said, Then, go quickly and come back quickly. Chu Zhigao was stunned. He looked at his mother and asked softly, Immortal Master, are you talking about Macho City, where Rejuvenation Valley is located? Yes. You know it? Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, That, but based on that, you must buy a good horse. It's fine. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and waved his hand. Go ahead and pack up. I'll be back soon. It won't take me a few days. Immortal Master, Chu Zhigao's mother also wanted to say something. It's a long journey. Why don't we let Zhigao accompany Immortal Master? We could take care of each other on the way. Ha ha! Zhang Xiaohua laughed and stood up. She said, Since Chu Jing is already under my tutelage and the Immortal Dao is going to flourish soon, I won't hide anything from you. I'll let you see Ai's supernatural powers. After she finished speaking, she made a hand seal and floated away. When she was 3 feet above the ground, she gradually disappeared. Then, a sentence came from midair. Wait carefully in the courtyard. I will be back in a few days. Immortal Master. Chu Zhigao's mother saw this and fell to her knees. She almost thought that Zhang Xiaohua was an immortal. Li Jinfeng's mouth was wide open, and he didn't come back to his senses for a long time. Although he knew that Zhang Xiaohua's martial arts were excellent and that she could easily get a coffin from somewhere, he never thought that he, a country boy who was enlightened by the Sha Wan Jie, would now have supernatural powers that he could only read about in the legends of immortals. After Zhang Xiaohua left Poyang town, she concealed herself and went straight to Maocho City. After a few days, she saw a familiar city. At this time, Maocho City was different from a few days ago when Zhang Xiaohua came here. The first time was when Ye Qinyu was fighting for a spouse, and the second time was when Longting Mountain Villa was besieging Rejuvenation Valley. Every time, Maocho City was filled with Jianghu people with shiny swords and sabers. This time, because of the immortal abode on Yao Mountain, everyone who had some ideas went north. There's almost no Jianghu person in Maocho City in the south. A servant of the carriage company? Why is there a new servant? Zhang Xiaohua scanned with her divine sense and found it strange. Sure enough, the servant of the carriage company was replaced by an honest middle-aged man. The previous servant was nowhere to be seen. That's strange. Could it be that guy has foresight like me? Zhang Xiaohua landed in the middle of the carriage and found some time to use his bewitching finger to get to the bottom of things. Oh, so that's how it is. Zhang Xiaohua frowned slightly. That servant is no longer a servant of the carriage company. I'm afraid he exposed himself. But since he is in Maocho City, it will be easy to find him. Zhang Xiaohua came out of the carriage company and released her divine sense. She wanted to find a servant in Maocho City. However, Maocho City was filled with people. How could it be easy to find him? Zhang Xiaohua searched for a long time, but she didn't find anything. Forget it. Since I am in Maocho City, I should check on Little Orange's injuries. Zhang Xiaohua then went in the direction of Rejuvenation Valley. In Rejuvenation Valley, it was still spring all year round. In an embroidery room, Little Orange was leaning against the bed. There was an embroidery frame on her body. Her right hand was on the bed, while her left hand was holding an embroidery needle. She was embroidering something thread by thread. In a moment of carelessness, her left hand touched the reel of thread. Little Orange naturally raised her right hand to support it. However, the moment she moved, a trace of pain appeared on her face. She gritted her teeth and slowly moved her right hand to the reel of thread. She straightened the reel of thread before placing her right hand back on the bed. Little Orange, is your right hand still okay? A familiar voice, one that even appeared in Little Orange's dreams, rang in his ears. Big Brother Ren? Little Orange was shocked and turned her head in disbelief. Wasn't there a familiar face and a familiar person standing next to the window? Is it really you, Big Brother Ren? Little Orange was pleasantly surprised. She no longer cared about the reel of thread. Just as she was about to get up, Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, Don't move, don't move. I heard from Fishing Ye that you haven't fully recovered. You've seen Miss? You. Little Orange's surprised face was filled with respect, and then a trace of melancholy. He said, You are really that immortal? Zhang Xiaohua walked up to him with a smile. Little Fish Nye is indeed like a sister to you. She even told you about this. Immortal. Elder Run, please don't blame her. Elder Sister Ping, rode on your David's deer and held the token you gave her. Although she heard from Elder Sister Ping, that you picked it up on the road, but Miss didn't think so. She knew that you had always been thrifty and also had deep feelings. Huan, you couldn't have thrown away. You must have something urgent and had no choice but to let Elder Sister Ping ride on your David's deer. And when we found out that the sect leader of the Misty School is Zhang Xiaohu, and that the Misty School is in Pingyang City, didn't you go to Pingyang City before? Your name is so similar to Zhang Xiaohu's. Miss wondered if you were that immortal. I forgot about Little Fish Nye's intelligence. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, When I accepted Little Fish Nye as my disciple, I didn't have time to ask her. I didn't expect that I gave myself away so much. When Little Orange heard this, he was overjoyed and said, Congratulations, Elder Immortal. Miss has finally been accepted into the Beidou School, and Elder Immortal has finally accepted an extremely intelligent disciple. Then he felt a little sad. After thinking for a while, he probed, Miss must be very happy now. Little Orange, when I accepted Little Fish Nyan in my Beidou School, she's also my junior sister. You don't have to call me Master Immortal. Just call me Big Brother Ren. Big Brother Ren? Don't. Why don't you call me Young Master Ren like before? Little Orange said shyly, I should call you Young Master Zhang, but Young Master Ren is too comfortable. It's okay, Little Orange. Recuperate well. When your body recovers, we will... we still don't know where to find us. If we don't find you, you can go to the Misty School in Pingyang City and look for the leader of the Misty School, Zhang Xiaohu. He will definitely know where we are. Young Master Ren, I can go now. Bring me to Miss. Little Orange begged. Zhang Xiaohua shook his head and said, I have already checked. You're still not in a good condition to move around. Let's leave it at that. It won't be too late to look for us next year. Little Orange looked disappointed and laid down again helplessly. Oh yes, where is Valley Master Nya? Why isn't he in the valley? Zhang Xiaohua asked curiously. I don't know. It seems there is something important. Old Master C and the rest of the people from the weapon forging sect came. Then, Valley Master brought some disciples and went out with them. Miss, didn't she tell you? Zhang Xiaohua shook her head and said no. Little Orange was stunned. Suddenly, she thought of something and said in shock, Young Master Ren, Miss and Sister Ping, I went to Pingyang City to look for you right after Valley Master left. How long has it been? Why did you come back to Spring Valley? Before Zhang Xiaohua could explain, Little Orange realized something and said apologetically, I forgot that young Master Ren can fly. Hee. Seeing that it was getting late, Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, All right, Little Orange, do you have any words for Little Fish Nya? Young Master Ren, are you leaving now? Little Orange asked. Yes, I came to Macho City to settle some matters. But when I thought of your injuries, I came over to take a look. After I am done, I still have to rush back to Pingyang City. Zhang Xiaohua said, Thank you, young Master Ren, for still thinking of me. Little Orange was a little happy and said, I don't have anything to say to Mississippi. I only hope that in the future, I can still serve. Miss. No problem. There are only a few dogs and kittens in Beta School. It will be lively if you go there, Zhang Xiaohua said with a smile. Really? Thank you, Master Immortal. Thank you, young Master Ren. Little Orange was overjoyed. All right, you should recuperate first. I'll agree to your request. I will take my leave first. Zhang Xiaohua waved her hand, conjured a spell, and flew out of the window. When Zhang Xiaohua was far away and out of sight, Little Orange heaved a long sigh of relief. She released the embroidery in her left hand. The embroidery was a pair of ducks playing in the water. Please vote monthly. Please vote recommendation. Please collect. Please tip. Thank you. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.